Ms. Condon.
Okay.
1 second.
Okay. All right.
5 seconds. Oh.
All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome. I'm going to go ahead and begin the April 9th, 2024 Board of Supervisors meeting. Let the record show that 5 of the 6 are here present. We'll talk about someone is going to probably come in electronically. We'll take care of that in a minute. To my immediate, or to my far right, I have Mr. Clay Forehand from the Madison District. To my immediate right, I have Mr. Floyd Thomas from the Mattaponi District. To my immediate left, I have Mrs. Nancy Long from the Port Royal District. And to my far left, I have Mr. Reggie Underwood from the Reedy Church District. At this time, if I could have everyone stand for an invocation given by Mrs. Long, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the beauty of this day. We thank you for all your many wonderful blessings. We ask that you be with this board tonight, lead us to wise decisions for the betterment of our county. We ask for safe travel for those who are here in attendance tonight, that they might be home safely and bring us all together again in 2 weeks to do your work. These things I ask in your name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, before I go ahead with kind of the business, we have a board member tonight that his work has taken him suddenly out of the area. He was unexpectedly called away for work. So we do have an electronic meeting policy, and I am going to ask that the board allow Mr. Seeley, I don't see him up there right now, but when he does come into the meeting, that we allow him to come in. So I will need a motion and a vote.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to let Mr. Seeley come in electronically. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Mr. Seeley, when he comes in, all right, can join us electronically. All right. Next thing, opening board comments. I will start with Mr. Underwood.
No comments, Mr. Chairman.
Mrs. Long.
Yes, I just want to thank the chief and his staff for putting together a nice little recognition for Mr. Parrish. We read a resolution to him in our last meeting, but he could not be here, so we went to him, and he was delighted, and everybody seemed to have a nice time. So I want to thank all those who were involved in putting that together for Mr. Parrish. I think he really enjoyed it. That's all I have, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Thomas?
I'm going to pass right now. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Forehand?
And I have none.
All right, sweet. I just want to reiterate, and I think I literally bring this up at every board meeting. And there will be a flyer going out. We will be having in 2 weeks a Caroline kind of cleanup along the county, along the roads. We had one in Lake Landor. We have a cleanup every few months along Lady Smith Road. Matter of fact, the lady who began it is here tonight years and years ago with her husband. And it's bad. We do it every 2 months and it's bad. We found 3 trash bags full of beer cans, just a dump site. And I'm going to keep on bringing it up until we have something that starts to make a chip or something that we can do to make a dent in this. Because right now it's, you do the trash pickup and then an hour later, 2 hours later, there's trash out on the road. So unless we start as a county addressing this, it's going to continue to remain a situation that we don't want to deal with. That's all I've got for now. Do we have any amendments to the agenda?
I have one, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I'd like to add a discussion of the Low Massey Park playground equipment. We could add that as 9A.
Okay. So 9A, we will add that.
And I have one with the consent agenda, but I'll wait till we get to the consent agenda to make that motion,
Okay.
unless you want it now.
You can do it now.
I'd like to make a motion that the Mount Airy PERT be removed from the approval of the Planning Commission schedule. That's 2C.
So removing something from the planning.
I'd like to move it from the schedule, take it out.
Okay. Is there a reason why that's?
Yeah, the applicant had talked about it, they want it to be delayed, so I said we take it out.
Okay.
But it's just a planning commission action.
Right,
We're not doing anything
No.
for that, so we
Right.
don't really have to remove it.
okay.
So just leave it as is or remove?
I think they wanted to remove from the schedule so it had to be rescheduled. They want to reschedule.
We just don't have to include it in a board agenda.
Right, okay.
But we're accepting the planning commission's actions, which is that consent agenda item.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Do we have any, is there any issues with Mr. McKenzie?
Yeah, I think so. So we're looking at whether to take something out of the consent agenda right now. And so looking at that now, so the item on the consent agenda is the summary of the Planning Commission recommendations from their meeting last month.
Right,
And Mr. Underwood, looks like one of those things was the Planning Commission had their public hearing on the comp plan amendment for Mount Airy.
correct.
And in that document, the requested action for the board is to schedule a public hearing on that comp plan amendment for the May 14th meeting. So I think staff just needs some direction from the board on, I guess we can pull that summary from the consent agenda and then get the specific direction from the board as to what action you want to take on those items and whether you want to follow the staff recommendation or not. Is it, because we're just doing the procedure right now. We're just setting the agenda.
Right,
So sounds like we're just going to add 9A
yeah,
for Little Massey Park, and then we're going to pull this item from consent, and we'll take it up then to discuss what you want to direct staff to do on these items coming up from Planning Commission.
correct.
Okay. All right, so I have, did we have a second to that? Amended agenda? Second, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion or the agenda as amended? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, very good. All right, our next item on the agenda is under presentations and reports, a posthumous resolution for Mr. Scott Sullivan. And I'm sorry, his name is spelled wrong on the thing, but it is spelled right on the resolution. So I'll take the blame for that. And appreciation for his service on the Caroline County Planning Commission. Before I read the resolution, I want to thank the family who's here today. I miss Scott a lot. Scott was one of those people that you could talk to for hours. I'm sure you're well aware, both of you are well aware of that, and it seemed like time would fly by. And we always started by talking business about what's going on in the county. He always kept me up to date on what was happening at the Planning Commission, but then it would delve into national politics or baseball or anything like that. And I really enjoyed having him on the Planning Commission because Scott did what was best for the county. Scott was not in it for a political ideology. He wasn't in it for selfish reasons. He was in it because he wanted to do what was best for Caroline. And I can't say enough about how much I really appreciate him on the board. So thank you both for sharing him with Caroline County. And so I've got a resolution to read for Scott. It says, a resolution in remembrance and appreciation of Scott Sullivan. Whereas Mr. Frederick Scott Sullivan of Caroline County, Virginia, passed away on February 29th, 2024, at the age of 51 after a lengthy illness. And whereas Mr. Sullivan spent years protecting the public through his work as a senior security specialist at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, where he earned a prestigious Meritorious Service Award, and in nuclear security at the Dominion Energy North Anna Power Station. And whereas he served the citizens of Caroline County as the Western District Representative to the Planning Commission, where his background, knowledge, and experience were of great benefit and helped the Board of Supervisors make informed decisions about land issues. And whereas Mr. Sullivan was also known for his love and skill at woodworking, which he used to restore and refurbish his home and adjacent barn in support of his wife's business plans to develop the Magnolia Field Special Events venue on their property near Ladysmith. And whereas through his active personal involvement in the community, Mr. Sullivan touched the lives of many in Caroline and made a lasting impact on the county and its people. Now therefore be it resolved that the Caroline County Board of Supervisors hereby expresses its deepest sympathy to the family of Scott Sullivan upon his untimely passing and its appreciation for his dedicated service and the many contributions he made to the betterment of Caroline County, adopted this 9th day of April, 2024. Let's give Mr. Sullivan a round of applause, please. If the family would like to come up, we will do a picture. So come on up to the stage.
One, two, three. And one more. Perfect.
One of the, before I appoint, I'll just tell a little story about Scott. When I was, before Scott was on the Planning Commission with me, I would drive by this old dilapidated house on Ladysmith Road, and I found out someone was buying it and restoring it, and I was kind of questioning if that could happen. The condition it was in and what it came, I'm sure, Callie, you have before and after pictures. What he did to restore that house, I wouldn't even know how to start. And I got an invitation to go out and tour it. And I always thought the name should be after the bird, but they had this peacock. So I didn't know peacocks were native to Virginia, but some wild peacock was in the barn upstairs. So I always thought that was really, really neat. And anytime I talked to my mom, I brought my mom out there, and she was so fascinated that they had kind of a peacock hanging around. So I don't know if you've seen Perseus or not since, but that was a really, really cool story. So I really appreciate you guys sharing that. So thank you very much. All right, we have the consent agenda. If we move along to the consent agenda, do I have a motion to present the consent or agenda as presented, or would someone like to pull something? Yeah, we pulled C. Anyone have any questions about any of the other ones?
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion to approve the consent agenda A, B, D, and E, and also ask staff if they would work expeditiously to provide some support to get our minutes done quicker.
Sure. If the board would indulge me for a second, I have a question on D. Just a question on D. Mr. Cully, maybe, or Mr. Parton, or
Yes, sir.
yeah, I thought a couple of years ago, I thought we had approved that. I thought that was something that was something the county had already.
Not that I'm aware of. I don't think I was here when this went on in closed session to talk about. So I think that was one of my many flu sicknesses. So Alan probably, or Tamika can handle this better than I can.
Okay. Because it's definitely a needed position, but I thought a couple of years ago that we had
couldn't
discussed
find where
this.
you had officially approved it, so that's why
What's that?
we couldn't find where the board had taken action to officially approve it, and so that's why we brought it forward.
Okay. All right, does anyone have anything else? All right, I will take we had a motion already? Do we have a second? We had a motion and a second. Motion was made by Mr. Thomas and seconded by Mr. Underwood. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion carries. All right, we are well ahead of schedule here. So what's that? What's that? We can see. We have to, as amended, the agenda as amended. Do you want me to approve the agenda as amended?
No, you
No,
did that.
just
No,
item
you've still got
C.
a consent item on that was pulled off.
Oh,
You're not
okay, I'm
finished
sorry.
consent.
All right.
C.
Yeah, item C, I'm sorry.
Could I make a motion based on Mr. Underwood's suggestion that we accept the planning commission schedule, but remove the proposed public hearing date for the Mount Airy perk? Would that be acceptable to you?
That'll be acceptable, Mr.
That's my motion. If there's a second, we can move on.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion, and I vote aye as well, motion carries. We are well ahead of schedule, so do we want to do, Mr. Underwood, do you mind if we do 9A right now?
No, I don't mind at all, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Let me go ahead, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, go for it.
Mr. Chairman, as you know, we're replacing the park equipment at Low Massey Park in Dawn. We thought we would be able to save the swing set, and Mr. Shebel called me today and said that the gentleman says the swing set is out of compliance. Some parts are missing, and it would cost more to try to fix it and remove it than to build a new one. So he can give you the in-depth detail, but that's basically what it is. And would ask the board to appropriate $18,700 to buy a new swing set and put it in place in the Low Massey Park. That's pretty much in a nutshell, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
But Mr. Shebel can answer any questions about how this came to fruition.
Anyone have any questions?
So we just
One
did move
second.
well. We've got the new playground equipment that's going in as part of the renovations down there. And we were going to try to move the old playground equipment, which is second through fifth grade, or second through, or 2 through 5, I should say.
2 through 5.
Years old. So that one we were going to move and add to the rest of the playground equipment. We were waiting for the playground company to come and tell us what it was going to do. They came and looked at it. There's a bunch of pieces that are broken and missing that need to be done. It's 20 years old, and it was $10,000 to dismantle it, to get the replacement parts, and $8,000 to reinstall it. For $18,761, we can buy a new one. It just made more sense to buy a new one that's then in compliance, meets all the new standards, has all the safety nuts and everything that's required to be on it.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a motion?
Was, actually, was any of the moving costs part of the initial?
No, that was, we were waiting for them to get here to try to move that, because originally it was going to stay where it was, and it's like, well, it'd be better if it was moved there.
Okay.
So they showed up today to do the install, and we were able to get with them, and we found out that, there was a lot more issues and a lot more cost than we ever expected. And then this morning, had a ballpark number, and then we've got a final quote now from the same company that we bought the playground equipment in at both parks now.
All right, thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion that we appropriate $18,761 for new playground, new swing equipment at Low Massey Park.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Underwood and a second by Mr. Thomas. Any discussion? Was the appropriation correct?
From the unencumbered fund.
From the unencumbered balance, I'm sorry. Thank you, Ms. Morgan.
Okay. So I have a motion, second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I will vote aye as well. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Does the board
Thank you, Board.
mind
I
if we?
appreciate it.
Yeah, okay. We will go ahead and do number 8, request to accelerate filling new full-time EMS compliance position.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board. If you recall, I came to the board in February and described to you the law changes, both with the DEA and the State Pharmacy Board, where EMS now has to become its own pharmacy. At that time, we thought we could do one-to-one exchange on Schedule 6 drugs, which is the majority of the drugs we carry on the ambulance. We've learned today and in your packet from 2 groups that one-to-one exchange will probably not be honored by the medical facilities come November. So I'm asking for 3 months of salary to accelerate hiring the EMS compliance person to finish out this year and start working on that project and developing policies and procedures for us moving forward.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for, I think Chief, you briefed us extensively on this, either last meeting or the meeting before. Yes,
Chief,
Mr.
is this
Foran?
something that a third party, like this is a business opportunity for someone to come in and perform this service for counties like us?
Not really, no.
No.
No. We have to have one person in the organization that carries the license that's able to provide that, just like a pharmacy. Our doctor would have to get a separate DEA license to support us. So it has to be somebody in-house.
So like a jurisdiction that might have only 5,000 people in the county and no professional staff like what we have, they have to
be their own pharmacy or they're not going to be able to use medications.
Wow.
Yes.
Very short.
And interestingly enough, if we didn't have one EMS number, right, we just have one EMS number for Caroline County and all its units. If I had a number and Ladysmith Rescue had a number, we would not be able to share drugs back and forth, even though we're in the same jurisdiction. Each agency, by code, has to have its own pharmacy.
Wow.
So there's places today that will run into that problem, where the governmental agency has the resources maybe to do that, but won't be able to share that with.
Again, the stated goal is to have more control over drugs by having more people that distribute drugs.
I can't answer that, sir.
Okay. I just want to make sure I'm clear.
You are correct in that.
Okay.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Chief, just before we go vote on it, I know there's several people here that weren't at the last meeting. Can you give like the 30-second rundown on what this is all about?
30-second rundown. Now, the DEA is changing the pharmacy laws. We'll no longer be able to do a kit for kit or box for box exchange at the ER. We will have to become our own licensed pharmacy, providing our own medications to our own people for distribution for patient care. And then every time that we treat a patient, we'll have to restock from centralized locations here in the county to do so and not the hospital.
So there is a potential to negatively affect response times.
Absolutely.
So, and it's
Absolutely.
a unfunded mandate from the federal government. So they are saying that we have to do this and the localities have to pay for it.
Exactly.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure so everyone understood. Okay, so there's nothing we can really do when the feds tell us that we have to do something.
Actually, one last question.
Sure, Mr. Forehand.
The bandwidth on the radios that we had to change 12 years ago. Mr. Kelly, remember our
The
new radio
bandwidth?
system?
That was federal.
Yeah.
Okay. We had, okay, 700.
Did they actually implement that, or have they still been delaying that for 12 years?
Oh, the legislation?
Yeah.
I really don't know the answer to that question, but I know they forced narrow banding
Right.
when they forced that. So I imagine they did implement some of that. It just took them a while longer. But remember, that was coming from the FCC, this coming from the DEA. So I would suspect, and one thing I would add to his employee is we need to get in line to get equipment purchased. We don't want to be moving, there's only so many vendors of this that normally we're dealing with hospitals. And now you add 95 counties in number of cities that run, you'd think, and just in Virginia.
It's 3,500 counties in the country.
Yeah, so we're very worried. We don't want to be late to the table ordering this equipment. So that's why we don't want to wait till July 1, because we're afraid of this, because the day the hospital says they're not doing anymore, we're done. So we've got to be, and so that's why we're trying to be proactive. And so even though the feds may delay this, we don't know what the hospitals are going to do. So that's why we're trying to be proactive. Get this person on board, get the equipment ordered, and get that in place, do our training and all of the things we've got to do, get our license. We can't get our license until we have all the DEA approved equipment. Correct? Did I say that correct?
We have been working on this problem, so we're working on a warehouse right now. Until I can get that warehouse up to state code, I can't get inspected to get my license at the state level, then the DEA level. So there's a lot of different steps.
And you can get your license before you have a designee?
No. But I got to have a room, a safe, an alarm system, monitored system, climate control. So we're working through that now.
All right, thank you. Sorry to be.
And this is only $19,000 from the unencumbered fund that we're appropriating now.
That's true,
Probably
correct.
less than that because it's April.
Well, you have to assign it to me, but at the end of the day, we have salary savings that would cover those funds, but Ms. Morgan makes me do it.
Okay.
All right, do I have a motion to,
So moved.
do I have a second?
Second.
All right, motion and a second to accept a new full-time EMS compliance position. There's been a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, would the board be okay with going to number 6, or do we want to go to close first?
I'm fine with 6.
Yeah. 6, you okay with doing 6 first? Okay, so I'd like to do 6 first too. So let's go ahead and do number 6, which is the proposed Caroline County Public Schools Energy Performance Contract. We got briefed in this at the last meeting, plus on the work session today, the schools had more information on this. So how do we want to go ahead? Does Mr. Culley, do you want to come up and just give some little information background before we go ahead and discuss so the public knows?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The schools have studied and have 3 options for obtaining the HVAC upgrades at the middle school that were needed. And then they looked at doing a second option, which was more energy savings amongst multiple buildings of theirs, not just the middle school. And then they had a third option to fix some air quality issues related to humidity and fresh air at the high school. So with the 3 proposals, their board voted last night for doing all 3. make sure I'm looking at the right page because I got lots of
Option three, I think, right?
pages. To be there, 3A and our debt service and how that affects the county is we have about $6,166,880 that we had sort of earmarked for this project from their ESSER funds. A proffer that's in the school proffer account would take all of that money, plus some money that they, from school construction money they were given over the last biennium that they have not used on all other construction projects, and money they had savings from year-end savings. So that makes up $6 million of the total projected cost of the project of $10,761,408. So the cost of that, if you'd be borrowing $4,594,528, it'd be a public offering. Davenport looked at bank rates, and bank rates are competitive unless you're going out for a number of years. So if you're going out to the 20-year mark, bank rates aren't competitive. You'd have to go on the open market for a regular bond. One of the reasons we try to keep our bond rating as strong as we possibly can. So you would have interest of about $2,570,644 for a total cost of principal and interest of $7,030,644. They do, what the schools have recommended is that they want to install and have a company pay for and install on multiple schools, solar, rooftop solar, it would all be rooftop, no ground mount. And that energy saving is, with this performance, it's an energy contract, is $7,011,576, which means over the life of the 20 years out to 2045, you should be 19,000 short over that life. Now, that energy savings does come back directly to the schools and the cost of the lower electric bills, which the county does not pay. The schools pay that. So we would be paying that debt service. We would have to work out how we would have any savings, as it was talked about in the work session, and maybe the board just lets them keep that and roll that from their maintenance budget into their instruction budget or that type of thing. But overall, we would be financing, no matter whether they do solar or not, if you choose to do it, the $10 million project, $4,460,000, because that's the delta. You could choose and tell them you don't want to do that. I would recommend, at bare minimum, you need to fix the air problem at the high school, because that to me, a humidity problem in a school that could lead to other issues with mold, and you'll be back fixing that at some point in time, maybe with more damage. So and if you're going to do that much, it's probably why they chose to recommend doing all three. Right. You've got to do the one, which is the HVAC at the middle school. So if you leave out the middle one, you're not really saving that much. But if it was a county building, I'd be after you to fix that air quality issue that they have at the high school.
Mr. Colley, just real quickly, so this project would be for the HVAC at the middle school, which we've been talking about for a while now. We've been talking about that for several years, we all agree that needs to be done. The
Correct.
HVAC at the middle school, it can be fixed. It's time for a new one. Then the energy upgrades, was that, just so that people know, would that be at all schools or just on certain schools?
That's more of a school question, but I know it was air quality at the doors, in LED lights where they don't already have LED lights. It was all the things that the energy performance audit found that needed to be fixed, but I don't know how many schools that.
Is it, Dr. Calveric, is that all your schools or just middle and high school?
I think it was more than that, but.
Good evening. We do have the McClure representative for greater detail, but I will share with you that option 3 does include indeed the CMS HVAC project, LED lighting, the envelope for the buildings, as well as the humidity solution that was just identified by Mr. Colley. But I will let McClure identify any additional information that may be
Just really,
relevant.
yeah, just really briefly, we don't need to, I mean, the energy upgrades, when you're saying the energy upgrades, is that all the schools? Or is it? It is, okay, so that was my question, all right. Okay, how would the board like to, does anyone have any questions, Mr.?
I do.
Mr. Forehand?
Is it possible to decide on the solar scope at a later date? Because this doesn't affect the funding of this project, just the rebates that we get at a later date.
Yes, the important part is to, be able to fund the cost of the project so they can get started this summer, so they can spend down the ESSER funds. So that's almost the critical nature of tonight's meeting, to be able to get this project moving.
And the reason.
Not to be, real quick on the solar.
Okay.
They own those buildings. At any time, they could have years ago or any other time put solar on those buildings. They don't need permission from the board.
Okay.
What we may want to negotiate with is, what are we going to do with the savings?
Yeah.
But they could do it without us. I mean, that, as title owner of the building, they could go ground mount, I guess, unless we have some zoning that would prevent it, which I'd go over to zoning, but I know we don't have on rooftop. I mean, we could put rooftop on county buildings, obviously, because we own them. So I think that's the same thing. So I think our critical thing, are we going to borrow for all three, two, or one? That's the board's decision. And then they can move forward with the financing. We'll move forward, they'll have the project. And if they include that, as we heard, there's no cost because the company's going to do it.
Well, when we had our work session with them, there was a study they were going to have because the roof of Lewis and Clark, one, it's a decorative roof that we're going to cover up. Two, it's at eye level of the homes around it because it sits kind of low. So we was kind of, the point of my question is can we delay any decision on that or any conversation on that, on the solar, until that data comes back?
We can certainly entertain that conversation. Additionally, we have been in dialogue with McClure about looking at the other facilities that we have not identified. So currently, we're talking about solar on the rooftop of the middle school, the high school, and Lewis and Clark. But completely agree that Lewis and Clark presents a different surroundings in the community. And so we can certainly look at Bowling Green and Madison to determine the viability.
Yeah, and there's some flat parts of Lewis and Clark as well that, again, we didn't spend the extra money on to make it look nice.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So all of those are things that are options that we can certainly look at.
I'm a proponent of going the whole nut on option
So
three.
Mr. Thomas?
I think Dr. Calveric just answered the last question to make sure. We were originally just talking about solar on the middle school and the high school. The discussion of Lewis and Clark, we could just eliminate that part or delay that part. But you'd go ahead with the other two right now to make sure we got the savings that was estimated, right? Or close to.
Correct. So what we're looking for today actually is the main energy project, which is the capital upgrades. We still have studies and we still have some additional work to do for the solar. That until we get to the end of that, you don't need to make a decision on that right now.
But you'd still plan to move ahead with that, and then if something came up. Okay. Then I had one question for Mr. Cully, and I know we have to go ahead with this project. There was some discussion previously about Davenport saying we were close to our borrowing limit.
That is correct.
But now we're saying we're going to borrow $4.5 million.
We're right at, with what we propose to borrow in the budget and this project, just barely above, not our limit, but we're our target. So we're above our target for a couple of years, and then, depending on what you borrow next year, but, we start trending down in a pretty good base. And that's what we've always said. 27 is sort of where things get much better. So we're closing and banging in on our limits with our borrowing.
Okay. I just want to make sure that was clear. Thank you.
Mrs. Long?
Yes, I understand we need to do the projects of the middle school and the high school. We had a good presentation on. However, we're going to help pay for this. There's going to be savings to the school. I think there needs to be some type of an agreement between the school and the county as to what comes back to help us replenish what we're taking out of our savings. This project will pay for itself in savings, but it's costing us. So it seems to me there should be some negotiation there. Does that make sense?
We can certainly look at that. They're bringing right much money to the table, so we'll have to figure out, what that works out of, if you choose this $10 million project, what that breakdown is. But there's clearly something we could negotiate.
Okay. Is it Mr. Underwood? Okay. I will entertain a motion then.
I'll make a motion that we approve option 3.
Is that 3A, right? What we're looking at? 3A.
Yeah.
So is that 3A, Mr. Forehand?
I don't know, my paper just says option
That's
3. So.
The 4 million borrowing and the 7 million spending.
Mr. Cully said 3A.
3A, right.
Yeah.
3A.
Mr. Thomas.
I would second that.
All right, so we have a,
With the profit fund, yes.
yes, with the profit. Well, we're going to do the, that's the next on the, that's the next, that's the next one. That's the next one.
That will be the next item
Yeah, that's
on
the next
your,
item on the agenda.
on the agenda,
So
correct.
all we need is just 3A right now.
3A.
Mr. Forehand, you made the motion. Who was the second?
Ms. Long.
Mrs. Long was the second. Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously, so congratulations. All right, and since we did 6, we might as well do 7 because 7 kind of goes along with 6. So number 7 is a request to appropriate the fiscal year 22-23 school carryover funds and proper funds to the 23-24 school capital projects fund for the Caroline Middle and School HVAC and the Energy Performance Project. I have a motion by Mr. Underwood. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Long. All right, any discussion on the motion?
Yeah, just a question. Ms. Smith, I know this would be you, not now, but can you at a later point in time identify where those proffer funds came from? I think for the most part, we have those. I'd just like to give the appropriate developments credit for contributing to this project. Thank you.
And if I might add, I would like to, Dr. Calverica, I would like to sit down with you at some point and Mr. Kelly about, and we can talk maybe at a work session or with administration about the savings, how some of those savings would come back to the county.
Absolutely. We're open for that conversation.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. All right, we have done the unfinished business, right? 6, 7, and 8. And we've done one of the new business. Would the board like now to go into closed session or we would like to keep on going with new business?
Motion to go in closed session, Mr. Chairman.
Closed session, okay. So I will take a motion to go into closed.
Did Mr. Thomas, didn't he make it?
What?
You ready for me to read this?
Yeah,
Did we
yes,
get a
yes.
second?
Yes.
All right. I move that this board convene in closed meeting pursuant to, 1, the personnel exception of section 2.2-3711A1 of the Code of Virginia to discuss prospective candidates for employment in the position of building official, and the consultation with legal counsel and contract exceptions of section 2.2-3711A8 and A29 of the Code of Virginia for consultation with the county attorney and discussion with staff regarding a performance agreement relating to a potential VBSRP grant from the Virginia Economic Development Partnership, where discussion of the foregoing in an open session would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the county.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second to go into closed session. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are in closed session. We will try to be back here by 7:30 for public comment and then our public hearings. we're at public comment time.
Jeff,
Uh,
you gotta recertify.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. And we need to certify, before we do that, we need to certify on closed session. So Mrs. Long, is that? I need a motion to come out of closed session.
Seconds.
Motion is second to close out of session, come out. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, we are officially out of closed session.
I
Now-
move that the Caroline County Board of Supervisors certify that to the best of each board member's knowledge, only public matters discussed lawfully accepted from the open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in closed meeting to which this certification applies. And only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the board.
Okay, Mr. Forehand, do you certify that only this matters that we went into closed session for is what we talked about?
I so certify.
Mr. Thomas?
I so certify.
Mrs. Long?
I so certify.
Mr. Underwood? And I so certify as well. Okay, we are now to the point where we are at public comment time. Public comment is for anything that is not a public hearing. So if you would like to talk about anything at all in the county that is not a public hearing. So we have a public hearing later on the proposed tax rates. We have a couple other public hearings that you can see on agenda items 4 and 5. If it is not one of those public hearings, you may come up and discuss. We give you 3 minutes. We just require that you just state your name and your voting district. We do not need your address. So if there is someone that would like to come down and discuss anything, now would be your time.
Hi, my name is Nancy Kennedy. I live in Western Caroline.
My name is Linda Fifield. I live in Western Caroline also.
We are here to talk with you about the Aqua Virginia case, PUR-2023.
Mrs. Long, could you bring the, I'm sorry, Mrs. Kennedy, can you bring the thank you. Thank you.
First of all, I would like to start by thanking you all for the support that you have provided over the years in this fight with Aqua and their many rate increases. And I know you are continuing to do that now, and that is really helpful. It touches a number of you constituents in a number of your areas. Ms. Long dodged a bullet there. So Linda has been a part of this fight really since it started. She has spent numerous hours in this most recent fight standing out at the gate of Lake Landor where we live, collecting signatures from, I think, 535 people opposing the rate increase. And so we are hoping to get those to the SCC too. Many of the residents that we spoke to when we were standing there did not really seem to realize that our rates were going up. I think that a lot of people are now doing their billing electronically, and I suspect that they really were not seeing the notices. If you're old like me and you get a paper bill, it does state at the bottom. That's something that Aqua has been forced to do over the years. They didn't used to do that either. But a lot of people were surprised. There was one lady whose bank called and asked whether this additional $60 in her most recent bill was really valid. So there have been a lot of that. You jump in at any time, Linda. So we feel like they do need to do a better job of notifying the residents, the customers. I was asking Mr. Black how obvious it was on his online billing, and my impression is it is not. The notice is not obvious to people. The rate increase is pretty unreasonable. It is going to be a significant hardship for all of our customers. They are seeking 33.88% increase in water rates. If you're like us and you live in the part of Lake Landor that also has sewer, our sewer increase is 21.08% increase in our wastewater. A lot of that is used to make changes to their other facilities within Virginia. If they do something to a sewer system elsewhere, we pay for it. A lot of the residents are concerned about.
Can we allow her?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So we had 3 minutes, but we'll give you some more time.
Okay, I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention to it. I'm a teacher, I talk a lot. So of water quality, Linda has been communicating with Bobby Orick. She's going to provide you with that communication. Again, I want to thank you, and comments are due to the SEC. I was glad to hear you are sending that information out to your constituents. We really need them to be reaching out to the SEC. The hearing is in Richmond on April 30th, and you can have the rest of the 3 minutes.
On behalf of Lake Landor, I have 535 signatures asking that the SEC take a look at the extreme hardship they are creating. We have the families are telling me that they're either trying to pay their water bill or eat, and that's not right. It's not right. The tax base, people we're gonna have to move. Now, I know Landor pays a lot of taxes to the county, and I certainly feel like if we have people that cannot live in Lake Landor, the tax base will be affected, the homeowner values will be affected, and I've looked at these bills. They're $200-300 a month. In fact, I have one with me. It's a late bill. It's $965, and if anyone wants to see it, I'd be happy to show it to them. And I thank the board for listening, and I will certainly provide to the clerk the paperwork that I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you. And thank you for what you guys do. If we, ladies do, if we could, Mr. Parton, if you could take those and we could send those on to the State Corporation Commission on behalf of the citizens of Caroline County. Ms. Fifield, Ms. Kennedy, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. This is an ongoing problem in the western part of the county, and affects, I think, at least 3 of our districts. Okay. All right. Is there anyone else who would like to come up and comment on anything that is not a public hearing?
Hi, my name is Melissa Vaughn, Reedy Creek District, and I would request that we maintain the Cromwell Church Station design guideline requirement rather than skipping that requirement, because I think that we could provide information about the buffers, and we could do that through the design guidelines. So I would request that when that case comes up, or while you're preparing for that and getting to know that case, that we consider maintaining those design guideline requirements. I think if we allow one person not to do them, then the whole Cromwell Church Station, other parcels might not want to abide by that as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to talk about anything that is not a public hearing?
Good evening, Chair and Vice Chair. I am Latoya Deadweiler, and I'm in the Bowling Green District. And I'm accompanied by...
My name is Tanya Moore Kelly. I'm also in the Bowling Green District.
My name is Brock Dale Wallen. I'm also in the Bowling Green District.
And I am Joni Rollins Davis, and I'm in the mighty Mattapanai.
All right, good evening. We're here representing the Caroline County Juneteenth Committee. All of us are county residents who love and are active participants in our community. Many of you may be aware we are embarking on our 5th year celebration, a celebration of community, unity, and togetherness. Each year, the event has grown in our community, and we are so proud to say we've been able to provide bikes for children, KD passes, gift cards, just to name a few. This has all been done through vendor donations, sponsorships, our personal donations, and donations from community residents and businesses. In addition to giveaways, we also provide drinks, fruit, snacks, moon bounces, and entertainment throughout the day. Our budgetary needs are $5,000 to $6,000, and we are looking to expand our reach this year, embarking on our milestone with this being our 5th year. One of our major goals is to provide scholarship opportunities to students of Caroline, among other things. So far, that reason we are soliciting the county's help and asking if the board will consider contributing to this community celebration in observance of Juneteenth, which is now recognized as a national holiday and has become an event in Caroline County. And the residents of Caroline County look forward to this event each year. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you. Want to say anything?
Oh, yes. Are you guys a 501c3?
No, we are working to.
All right.
Sorry, we're working toward that. We have not had the extraordinary goal, the budget to make those transactions. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Do you know that you need to be a 501c3 to get donations directly from the county?
Yes, we are working on that.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to talk about anything that is?
Me, I'm separate from.
Okay.
Thank you. Again, my name is Joni Rollins Davis, and I am from the Mattaponi District. And good evening, everyone. First of all, I am a part of the Juneteenth committee, but I have a separate comment for the county. First of all, I would like to thank the county for their support in Juneteenth. The county provided us with the trash cans, the big trash receptacles for the last couple of years. Rappahannock Electric Co-op made a donation and had the trucks out there. I want a very big thank you to Darnell Howard for Parks and Rec, because we worked very closely with him and providing that space and with us, and Kevin and all of the other people in the county that have helped. We also had the library come out there, and we were able to give out free library passes out to the children, and then the Caroline Tourism, and then it was on the county website and the calendar. So I just wanted to say thank you to all of you for your support, indirectly and directly, and that I hope that as we are progressing with this and this national holiday, that once we get everything and all our ducks in a row, that the county would look forward to supporting us and supporting the citizens. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on anything that is not a public hearing? Is there anyone who would like to speak of anything that is not a public hearing? One last time, I will declare the public comments closed. We are now on to our public hearing section of the meeting. The number 3 on the agenda is the proposed tax rates for calendar year 2024. Mr. Cully.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, each year the Board of Supervisors establish a tax rate for the calendar year in April to ensure that the tax rolls are completed in time to be mailed out long before the due date. We've advertised that for tonight, and all your rates are included in the packet. The only rate that we propose changing for the calendar year 24 was the real estate rate, taking that from 77 cents a hundred to 83 cents a hundred, a 6 cents increase. Obviously, you don't have to change the rate at all. You can adopt the same rate you currently have. You cannot adopt more than we advertise, so you can't go up more than 6 cents. And the first bill this would appear on will be the June billing. As with all things, I have good news and bad news. I guess we have learned from the Commissioner's office that we have more business personal property as they've gotten those forms in March from some of our major employers, to where, and we've picked up significant revenue where we thought we would be down 400,000 in personal property. We're exceeding that book to book. What they build out in 23 was more than we budgeted. So now what they're proposing to bill out in 24 exceeds that pretty much by the 6 cents. So if the budget that I proposed, while not balanced and still includes a $2 million budgeting number from the fund balance, the need for the 6 cents is no longer there because we've been able to increase our personal property line item, which includes business personal property and cars, trucks, all those things, by that amount at 6 cents. The bad news with that is you still have to have a public hearing. So I would just, I'm not recommending 6 cents any longer now that I have the revenue. I wouldn't have recommended that had I known that 2 weeks ago. It's not necessarily their fault. That's this data that's coming to them. We're going to work on a way to try to come up with a better guesstimate earlier in the process next budget year. May not be 100% accurate, but closer than we got this year from the commissioner. I've had talks, and Alan has as well, with both the commissioner and the employee that works on that to try to tighten that up, because we don't like advertising 6 cents if we don't have to. But that is, in a way, good news that we do have the revenue, that we don't need it, unless you're going to exceed what I recommend in the budget. And then if that's part of what you want to think about, then there may be a need for 1 or 2 pennies, but clearly not 6. So with that, that's all I have, unless you have a question ready for the public hearing.
I do have one question, Mr. Cully, and then I'll let the board members. One of the things I think the citizens would like to see, because when you start talking taxes, you get people on the opposite ends of the spectrum. There are people say, hey, we need to give more money to schools, we need to give more money to the fire department. And then there's going to be people who say, hey, I'm on fixed income and I can't afford it. But is there a way based on, and I don't know if Mr. Parton has done this yet, but, or you, like if a house is valued at, or land is valued at $200,000 or $300,000, what exactly a 6 cent, a 5 cent? Is there a way that we could post that so that would be a way people could understand what would be the actual, what would be the impact of the pocketbook, I guess?
We could give you what 1 penny is, and anybody can, work their house up, based on what house.
Yeah.
Average, I'm
yeah,
sure
right. But it would be nice to have
the median price of the house.
It would be nice to have something on the county website that we could refer people to, so that way when it's adopted, they can budget for that. If for future reference. I know next year we're doing a reassessment.
Reassessment.
Yes,
I do expect to be here next year with proposing a much lower rate, because I expect the values to go up based on what the state has found where our assessment.
Then we have to equalize the rates.
Equalize the rate and or advertise a tax increase if we don't.
Okay. Does anyone? All right. Thank you, Mr. Underwood.
Mr. Cully, revenue from our businesses, is it increasing? And do you have any idea how much it's increased over the last?
It's increased significantly due to a couple of large businesses.
Guesstimation in terms of percentage.
I
know you saw the dollar today.
Right, and I don't. The commissioner would have to speak to that, or his staff. But some of that's private. You can't. I mean, it's not public information as far as what can be. He can give you totals.
Yeah, I want total. I'm not asking for an individual number.
I know you are. I'm just saying
a total overlook of how we are doing in terms of attracting business in the county.
It's helping tremendously.
And what that looks like, forecast going forward. Because I think citizens need to know that we're looking at building another fire station in Sparta. We're looking at building another fire station in Port Royal. We're looking at putting 9 firefighters in Upper Caroline, which is $1 million. And sooner or later, we're going to have to talk about building possibly a new school in the next 5 to 10 years. So
maybe sooner.
That maybe sooner. So that funding has got to come from someplace. If it does not come from the taxpayer, we've got to make sure our business income is steady so that the burden does not fall on the taxpayer. So I'd like to kind of know how we are progressing in terms of our business revenue.
I will ask them to prepare something that could look year over year with just like, percentage business personal properties going. I don't see that. All I see is personal property. So I don't know what part is automobiles versus other classifications of personal property.
I think it's important that we know.
I think from what I'm hearing, business personal property has grown significantly.
Thank you. That's all, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mrs. Long?
My personal feeling on tax rates is I don't like it when we do huge tax rates. One year we did, what, 7?
Oh,
Eight?
eight.
We did 11 one year when the school, yeah.
Oh, no, that was all based on what
Because that
you
was a bond
financed. And so
referendum.
we put
Yes.
that on a bond referendum for
Yeah.
for the school, and you did
It
the
still
radio,
was- it's-
the race, when the
it
radio
still was an
system.
11-cent
It was
tax
11
increase,
cents,
yeah,
yes.
yes.
But that all went into debt service for 2 projects.
Yeah, and some of the businesses we have coming are going to take a little while to get here
Correct.
with all the construction and the permits and that type of thing. And maybe what I want is a show of hands. Is it easier for citizens to have a 2-cent or 3-cent increase and not a 6-cent increase?
I think
On
everybody's their hands
your
with that.
budget. I mean, that would hurt me to do a 6. But I also know I've looked at, we had a meeting today with the school board. You know, we got more students coming in and we've got a salary increase coming up. If we don't want to consider a 2-cent increase instead of hitting everybody with a bigger one next year. So I'm just putting that out, thinking of how it affects my household budget, and would certainly like some input on that. Because we want to make it as easy for people's budgets as possible, but everything's going up, including salaries. And we have to be competitive if we want to get qualified staff. So that's my comment on taxes for tonight.
Mr. Forehand? Oh, Mr. Thomas, I'm sorry. Mr. Thomas?
Oh, okay. Thank you, Mr. Cully. I think I expressed my opinion about the tax increase and not doing it when you first presented it. I thought the county was doing very well with this revenue projections and we didn't need a tax increase. So
You did.
I still stick to that. I think it's the convincing position that I gave you that made you now see it's not worthwhile having a tax increase.
Okay.
But the reality is it's an 8% increase, 77 to 83. So whatever you pay now, if you pay $500 now, you pay $540. To some people, that may not seem like a lot every 6 months. But for a lot of people in the county, that's the difference between eating and medicine and things of that nature. So
I agree.
I'm going to stick to no tax increase this year is my opinion. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Forehand?
I didn't like 6 when it was presented. I think we may have some cuts to make, but I would like to look at other funding for the schools. I can appreciate their stance and their priorities, and you know, I could live with a cent or 2. I'd rather go up a little bit over time than slap with a much larger one all at once. So.
Okay. I will add my 2 cents. I'm with Mrs. Long, I guess. I'd rather see incremental tax increases than something all at once. We have in the last few years, we've added a new fire station that benefits the whole county because even though I live in Lake Landor, Ladysmith is not going to have to go down to Carmel Church now. We to do a lot of calls.
They might go down there, but they wouldn't be.
Yeah, not as much, right? So not as frequently, I should say. Yeah, well, you're welcome to the fire station. You're welcome to the sport, no problem. But anyway, the point is when people call 911, I mean, we've added the 22 firefighters, the new station, new engine, a lot of equipment. And when people call 911, they don't ask what your tax rate is. And I'm not saying I'm an advocate for huge taxes. I'm just saying the reality behind it is you know, we can show people what they've gotten. I mean, we had the grand opening of the fire station. We've got all these new county employees. It's in our budget to continue to add county employees. People want to feel safe when they call the sheriff's office, and we have to pay those people. Or 911. The schools, obviously, every year, we've got to stay competitive. We have to. We have to stay competitive with surrounding jurisdictions as far as teacher pay, or we're going to continue to lose them. We voted tonight for the performance agreement, which is supposed to pay itself back, but that was still, you know, we're going to have to finance $4.5 million out of that. So that's a $4.5 million cost. And we don't, right now in the county, own a lot of our stuff. We still have a lot of debt on our buildings and so forth. The one thing that we've got going for us in this county that's very strong, and that's thanks to our administration, is we have a very, very good savings account. And I understand that we could probably do no tax increase and dip into our savings account, and we could probably pay for it. I don't disagree with that. My concern is when we do have to borrow money and, you know, the rating agencies look at us and all of a sudden that we have dropped. And if our one positive all of a sudden dips below a line and then our bond rating goes down, the cost of us doing business goes up. And in the end, that negatively affects the taxpayer. So that's why my concern is to do nothing, I think would be, as far as a tax increase, would be irresponsible. So that's where I stand. And so I don't know if the board would like to entertain doing something tonight or.
Public hearing.
Oh, yeah, we need to. Actually, that's a good point. I should probably open the public hearing. So I will go ahead and open the public hearing. If any citizen would like to talk on the proposed tax increase, now is your time to do it. If citizen would like to talk on the proposed tax increase, now is your time to do it. One last time. Mr. Spinner.
Good evening. My name is George Spinner. I live in the Mattaponi District. I guess my question is, you're talking about a tax increase right now, but aren't you also talking about reassessments next year? And wouldn't that pretty much mean another tax increase? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spinner. Is there anyone else who would like to?
Hello, Jacqueline Richardson, Mattaponi. I'm just wondering what that line is. We do have a very nice savings account, and I have no problem understanding the fact that we need to stay in good standing. So I've heard a bunch of numbers. What is that line to keep us at good standing? That's where the constituents need to understand where that line is, because we're way above that line.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, Kathy Ramey, Mattaponi. I keep hearing how the county is doing well, and that's great. I'm really happy to hear that the county is doing well. But I'd like you to keep in mind that doesn't mean that the citizens are doing well. And we're going to have a reassessment, and that is going to be pretty large from what we've heard. And you're talking about raises for other people. That doesn't mean that your citizens are getting raises. I'd like you to keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on the public hearing on the?
Mrs. Cannon's coming.
Mrs. Cannon.
Sorry, I'm a little slow these days. Good evening, Board. Bonnie Cannon, Bowling Green District. I appreciate the fact that I can be here to speak tonight. I am not happy at all hearing about a proposed tax increase. Firstly, with the status of the current inflation, that myself and I think all residents, anybody I know, is dealing with current inflation, which is more than I can ever remember. Secondly, since we are undergoing a reassessment, I cannot think that our county would raise tax rates and do a reassessment at the same time. Because I've seen your reassessors riding around in Volvos. I've seen some guy with some signage on his car driving a Volvo, so I can't afford to do that. But anyway, that's beside the point. Just share that with y'all. But I do feel that a reassessment and a tax rate at the same time is a little much. And thirdly, I'd also like to mention, my husband and I are retired. We have been for some time. We live on a fixed income, and I know we're not the only residents in Caroline County that are seniors on a fixed income. The fact of that also, I would rather not see a tax increase at all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mrs. Cannon. Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding the proposed tax increase?
Good afternoon again. Tanya Kelly, Bowling Green District. I too echo the sentiments of all of the other residents, where knowing that we are going to have a reassessment, I think that in that case, we should table any type of tax increases for the time being. I think maybe if you want to revisit that, I totally agree with the chairman that you want to be fiscally responsible, and to do an increase gradually makes sense. But at the same time, I think, first of all, we need to find out what the reassessment, how that's going to impact us as residents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I think there's a misunderstanding.
Yeah, I know. I will explain it. I will explain it. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Is there anyone else like to speak regarding this? Hearing that no one else likes to speak, we have one more.
Hi, good evening. Christian McCurtain, Mattapanai District. I was waiting for an explanation because I think I'm a little confused as well about 6 cents versus only a couple cents. The other gentleman that spoke said that this was actually, there was new data that showed that it was not necessary to make the increase. Right. Am I understanding that correctly? Okay. I completely understand and living in the same world hopefully everybody else is. The massive price increases with inflation. It's Milton Friedman, economist, said that inflation is a tax everybody pays. I've been lucky enough to live in this county and benefited in many ways, so I thank you for that. I agree with a lot of the other residents that it's trying to balance between a couple of cent increase versus the reassessment. I know there are proposed developments. One I think is on the docket tonight. When those areas develop, obviously the value of surrounding areas goes up. So the value of your house goes up. So the amount of tax you pay based on your assessment, I'm assuming the math is correct, also goes up. We can't foresee very far down the road in terms of understanding how the economy is going to go. My crystal ball is a little dark, doesn't look good. I've tried to stay versatile as far as my skill set, but not everybody, like you've heard before, is able to do that. I seem to think that you guys are of the mind of just trying to act as responsibly and choose the least unpleasant choice that we can make. But I guess I don't know what else to say, but just try to make the right one.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in regards to the tax increase? Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding the tax increase? If not, I will close the public hearing. I do want to address something really quickly. So when the county does a reassessment, which is indeed, everyone said it is coming up, and that is indeed, and when people's houses go up, so as the total value of homes go up in the county, we by law have to change our multiplier. So for example, right now, if we need a certain amount of money, our multiplier is, our tax rate is 77, correct, currently? Yeah. So 77 cents times the total value of the house gives us a certain amount of money.
Divided by 100.
What's that?
Divided by 100.
Divided by 100. So when the value of homes in general goes up by law, what we have to do is we have to lower the actual tax rate to get the same amount of money. So yes, Mr. Cully.
The reassessment will take effect January of 25.
Right.
It has no effect on anything we're talking about today.
Right.
Once the reassessment values come in January, we will be here with a new proposed tax rate that would equalize that rate to what our current rate is. And then we would have to advertise, if we didn't go down that low, that we're increasing taxes by 1 cent, yes, 2 cents, or 4 cents. But that is not now. It is not going to be completed until the end of the year. So reassessment has, we're not talking about reassessment.
I was just trying to tell them in general.
Right,
in
I
general.
understand, but the important part is it's 25.
Right. But in general, what we have to do is we can advertise it as a tax, but we have to adjust the multiplier accordingly. So when we do a reassessment, there's not a guarantee that it's going to be a tax increase. It just means the value of your house has gone up, so the tax rate has to equal the total value is basically what it boils down to get the total value. So I just want to clarify that. Board members,
Can I add one thing?
Yes.
There's no magic line by the rating agency of where we need to be. There are three factors for your bond rating that they're majorly considered. Two of those factors we are not good at. We would be a lower rated community based on those factors. Our last factor is our fund balance is very strong. But unless you're spending out of it, obviously we go below our policy, we would lose our bond rating. And I can get them that number, but it could happen way before that because the other two indicators are not strong. And Standard & Poor's and Moody's are not going to tell you when they're going to downgrade you. We just know from our financial advisors, I know from being in New York, sitting across from those people, that was what they were impressed with us, is that we had a great cash position and therefore our bond rating was stronger. So it's not if we go below 18 million, it's going to happen. It's not that precise. It'll happen with whoever happens to be reviewing it in New York and what their opinions are. But our other two things, debt per capita and assessed value to budget, are not going to suddenly get better. They will get better, I believe, over the next few years with a bunch of industry that's on the horizon, but it's not going to happen right now. So we need to keep that strong cash financial position to make sure we don't have them. And they look at that every 2 years. So they're constantly looking and reviewing your documents and what you're doing with your money. So I can't just give a precise answer. If we go below this, it's happening. Could happen way above that.
Mr. Cully, before you sit down, as it looks now, how much are we going to have to go into our reserves, or will we?
As far as balancing, about 2 million, which is a little bit less than what we put in this year's budget. So it's potential we could go in this year and then next year go in it again. I don't know that yet. I would certainly hope not. We have not, as Mr. Thomas, Mr. Underwood have eloquently pointed out, have not gone in it in a number of years. We went in it back before COVID, 18 or 19. We went in a couple, $1 million or whatever it was.
1.1 million.
Right. So we haven't done that since. We've been very strong the last couple of years. I hope we will be positive this year, but we are balancing the budget like we have in the past on about $2 million. Last year was the balance number is like 2.7, off a little bit. But so the current budget, we're proposing 2.7 is that we could potentially go in. And as I pointed out during the presentation, we've added, if you count this firefighters and public safety people, up to 38 positions. So you'd back out the 9, 10 you'd authorize tonight, and a deputy, we're 29, so that's a lot of public safety positions. Those people, the boots are on the ground. We're paying them their benefits, their health insurance, their retirement. So that's a real number. We showed you that number adds up way more. If you add the ones in the proposed budget, way more than 9 cents. So I pay taxes like people. I understand. I don't want to just raise taxes willy-nilly, and I think I've shown that over the years. We try to be good stewards of the money and get the most bang for the buck. And I would add, inflation is bothering everybody, county employees, but it bothers the county and what we spend too. Everything that we're touching has gone up over with the same inflation, and some of it way more than the public may see, because we buy strange things and chemicals and all kinds of things to run the sewer and water and things that homeowners don't buy. But so we're seeing that same thing to get repairs on things, and all that stuff is much higher than it used to be. So we struggle with that as well. So I'm not telling you got to do it. As I said, the budget I presented 2 weeks ago, we no longer need that if that's where you're going to be. But if you want any extra money, I would encourage you, while this is out, maybe to look at a couple of cents, 3 cents, 2 cents, something to give you some room if you want some other things you want to spend on.
Okay.
With that, that's all I have.
Mr. Forehand.
Mr. Cully, can I ask you one quick question? So we'll be here this time next year with the reassessment and the balancing?
Hopefully earlier.
Earlier?
Yeah, hopefully. We're going to do, but yeah, sometime, normally, we'll be in late March or early April having a public hearing on the tax rate next year. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
But I don't know what that is. I'm just
Right,
Everybody
because we
knows,
don't have it.
everybody knows houses have increased since we did our last reassessment in 2020, the calendar year. And houses started increasing in the fall of that year and shot all up in 21 and 22, and I don't think have come down. So I expect we're going to see a pretty significant reassessment percentage, of which will be a pretty, double digit or something, a pretty large reduction of the tax rate to equal that out. But that's just where we are now, looking, as the man said, crystal ball.
Okay. I just wanted everybody to be able to hear that. Thank you.
Mr. Forehand?
And just to clarify some terms, Mr. Kelly, you said that we don't need it based upon what was presented.
Correct. But that's still $2 million out of the fund.
2 weeks ago.
And
that's
$2 million
still
out-
taking out over $2 million out of the
Unencumbered balance as a balancing number.
budgeting wise. But it also, if we were to want to increase a line item, for example, if we wanted to give more money to school operations
Correct.
for raises or to match the 3% or whatever it may be, that money has to come from somewhere.
Correct.
Either it comes from cutting something out of the budget, it comes from the unencumbered balance, the general fund our savings account, or it comes from a modest tax increase.
Correct.
Those are our three funding sources.
Correct.
So I just want to make sure that's understood by everybody. That's those are options. If we want to increase anything that was presented, you'd give a conservative budget that we can all appreciate. And you've been the catalyst, Mr. Parton, the catalyst for getting us financially on our feet from a while back. But and I appreciate that. I value that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Thomas?
Yeah, I just want to, again, echo what Mr. Forehand just said, and I do appreciate the work you've done, Mr. Cully. The reality and the thing that everyone has to understand is, unlike the federal government, the county government is required to have a balanced budget.
Yes.
Our budget is always balanced every year. Part of that process, since it is to some degree a guesstimate, we estimate how much money we're going to get in revenue, and we estimate our expenses. Those two are never really right because of the way Mr. Cully does it, which is an excellent way to do it. He underestimates our expenditures, or I mean our revenue, and holds our expenditures as close as we can. But the difference in those two numbers, so we balance our budget, is defined as what we take from the unencumbered balance. And to highlight that, just to show what happens, last year you predicted us to take out $2 million.
Somewhere around that 1.9, maybe 2.
1.9, and we actually added $5 million.
Yeah, it was crazy.
So our differential last year was $7 million. We expected to take out $2 million. We didn't take out $2 million. We got $5 million more than what we did.
But some of that wasn't all revenue.
I understand. Some of it was expenses that we didn't do.
Well, like a transfer to utilities where we budget, $1 million and something, but then we had all of the connections.
Right.
Completely made that go away. So that just stayed, wasn't transferred and bills up.
I have been a member of this board when we expected to have X number of utility connections and didn't get those.
Right, and you got to have more.
So we had to take out more from the unencumbered balance. But that's the way the process works. In the past couple of years, although we projected to take money out of the unencumbered balance,
we didn't.
Because of the efforts of staff and Ms. Smith, Mr. Parton, and you, we did very well. I expect us to do very well again this year because those same practices have been in place. So that's why I still say the county, if we need to bite the bullet, the county can bite the bullet this year and save our citizens from any undue hardship, because a lot of people are still suffering out there. A lot of people haven't come back from COVID. So we need to do whatever we can as a board to make sure we help our citizens while still providing all the services that they expect, and we plan to do that. So that's what I wanted to make sure we all understood.
Okay, does anyone have any other more comments? So how would the board like to deal with this? Do we want to take care of this tonight, or do we want to wait to, we've had the public hearing, so we can technically, Mr. Cully, do we need to adopt this tonight?
if you don't adopt this tonight, you got to come back at a special meeting. Plus, in May, you're going to have to hold a public hearing because to actually move your due date requires a public hearing. And you're not really going to remove the due date. What you're going to do is hold a public hearing to remove the penalty and interest off of the due date. So the due date will still stay June 5th, but the penalty and interest would go away till the date that we kind of agreed to, whatever it was, 20 something or other, 2 weeks later in July.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I'd make a motion that we keep the tax rate as it is without any increase for next year.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Nay.
Nay.
Mr. Forehand, how do you vote? Nay. Mr. Thomas?
I vote aye to keep the tax rate the same.
Mrs. Long?
Nay.
Mr. Underwood?
Aye.
And I vote nay as well, so that motion fails. Okay, can I get a secondary motion?
I'll make a motion, we increase the tax rate by 1 cent.
We have a motion to increase the tax rate by 1 penny. Do I have a second to that?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion?
Yeah, discussion.
Mr. Chairman.
Well, yeah, discussion, because the 1 penny represents 330.
360, I think, 365, something like that.
360,000 out of the fund balance, which is currently $21 million.
351, but anyway, something like that.
350, and we've got a fund balance of $21 million, including $7 million we use for water and the fire station at Sparta.
Yeah, but that is under contract. I was going to point that out. It's not we're planning, we're building.
Yeah, I mean, but that money is coming out of the fund balance already.
With a little bit of borrowing, but yeah.
1 penny.
Mr. Chairman, I know we deal with a lot of symbolic gestures, and a 1 cent tax increase really is just symbolic. It's not a tinker's dam.
So it should be.
It makes no difference. We're doing that to try to prove a point to citizens.
No, we're not.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it's my comment. Yep, I got the floor. Citizens, as I said at our last meeting, the citizens of Caroline County are doing their part. When we have revenue higher than expenditures of $5 million, the citizens are doing their part. We should not increase the tax 1 penny at all. We're sending a message to taxpayers that they are not doing their job. Mr. Cully has said that the businesses they're growing, and they will continue to grow. And we're hoping that we can continue to defer and defray costs upon our taxpayers. Inflation is a real factor. Homelessness is a real factor. 1 cent is really, to me, a slap in the face to every citizen in the county. That's my comment, Mr. Chairman.
Mrs. Long?
Mr. Cully, what do we pay for 6 firefighters a year approximately?
I'm going to need Tamika or the chief to answer that right off. For 6? 325. Yeah, that's just salary, not benefits. That's not benefits. So you have 30-some% on that.
Right.
So 400,000?
And so there is help in a 1 cent tax because we just hired a bunch of new ones. So we're getting ready to build a fire station and another fire station. We've got to hire more of those. Every little drip in the bucket helps. And again, I don't like doing 5 and 6 cent tax raises on myself or on anyone else in the county. I think 1 penny just gives us a little bit of a cushion toward either for unexpected expenses or to cover some salaries. We have our own employees to take care of, but we'll finish this vote, and then if it ends up being a higher tax increase next year, it does. But every little bit, I think it just allows people to adjust their budget.
Mr.
slowly.
Chairman, Mr. Chairman, we have never, ever raised taxes during an election year. But every year after election,
Nope, I take that back. I was a board member when we raised taxes during an election year.
maybe once,
And we had to do it.
maybe once,
So,
maybe once.
yeah,
I've been
okay.
on this board for 13 years. It always happens right after the election. You get sworn in January, and here it is, April, we say, oh, we need a tax increase. I'll bet you if we needed a tax increase, now we probably needed it last year. We didn't need one last year, we don't need one now.
well, the thing is, I think people will actually understand a penny or two after a reassessment because they've got more value in their house. If they feel that's better for them. But you know you're going to raise taxes next year.
I
You know you
don't
are.
I don't think reassessment should have anything to do with the fact that whether we raise taxes or not. I mean, reassessment should have to, it stands on its own. Reassessment.
No, it never has. There has never been a case where we did a reassessment and didn't raise taxes.
Yeah,
Never.
because it's hidden in the rate, because the rate goes down, but you're still, so it goes from 83 to, or whatever, 77 to 72, but then you keep it at 74. You've actually given a tax increase, but you're hiding it.
It's still, no,
It's still a
nobody's
tax
hiding
increase,
it.
and so
Nobody's
everyone's,
hiding it,
oh, well,
'cause
you know,
there's
the
always
rate,
the
come on,
equalized
come
rate.
on.
We're not hiding anything.
Mr. Forehand,
I think
do you have anything to?
Oh, I can appreciate the opinions of my colleagues, and and I've said this before, and they know what's going to come out of my mouth, that many years ago, like when many in the 18 to 20 years ago, the tax rate was so low and our debt was so high, and there wasn't an appetite of this board to raise the tax rate a penny. And that we gotten ourselves in such a position that we had to borrow money to make payroll.
That's not true.
Yes, it is
not true.
That's exactly what I understand. I've been told at least a dozen times.
That's not true.
When I first got on this board, we were, Mr. Cully, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, we were borrowing money. We were borrowing money to make our payments and for salary and so forth. We were taking a regular anticipation note because we couldn't pay our bills.
No.
We couldn't, no.
It was a cash flow issue. Is that not the real reason?
You didn't have enough.
We did not have it.
Right.
Yes, but what we discovered is you had a bunch of due tos, like they were booking transfers from the utility fund to pay back the general fund.
The treasurer, right, the treasurer wanted something to feel better.
Because we had appropriated money, and so you had a sort of imaginary fund balance that didn't have enough cash twice a year. And so you had a RAN of $4.5 million when I got here that we worked our way off. We had a 4-cent tax increase in that. The budget was prepared by Mr. Barton and Ms. Hatcher, but we did raise taxes that year, and then we got things under control after that and did away with that. We got it the next year, but did not use it. I think it was a couple $1 million because Beth was concerned we might run out of money.
Right, the treasurer was concerned. But so now we're saying we're at our borrowing limit, which is not different than 18 years ago when there was a lower tax rate. And now we're at our borrowing limit and we want to raise taxes?
And you hadn't.
So you can't compare then to now.
You had no cash on hand to pay for it.
I was here. You can't compare then to now.
No cash on hand to pay for it.
And you borrowed more money now. We're in debt more now than we've ever been.
No.
Cash dollars.
Thank you, Mr. Cully. I appreciate that. Yeah.
We'll have to look that up. It was
I think
way
Mr.
over
Cully has
200
something to say about that.
It was way over $200 million.
I don't need him to count for me. I can count.
Come on.
We're close.
We're close, though.
We're close.
Yeah.
It's about the same.
The reality behind this.
We paid way down, but we borrowed back.
We've in the last 2 years, we've increase.
Well, yeah, because we borrowed 20 million for utilities for stuff
Yeah.
that we have to do.
And we borrowed 25 million for
As
school
you said, we're just
construction.
talking the debt. We're not
Right.
talking
I'm
where
not
it
making
came
your
from,
point.
who
You're only
belongs
making
to.
you're only making my case stronger.
I know your case.
How much debt we've had, how many expenses that we've had. We've hired 30 firefighters, and I mean, we hired
public safety.
23 firefighters, several, a dispatcher, deputies.
Animal control, yeah, regular deputy, yeah.
And we didn't raise taxes last year.
$300,000 is not going to make a difference in that.
Well, I would rather a little bit, and a little bit than to slap somebody with 5 cents in 2 years.
Are we going to give that back next year when we find out we got more revenue?
We've
than we
lowered
thought?
the tax rate before.
Are we going to give it back next year?
We lowered the tax rate.
Lowered the tax rate before.
I don't think we've ever lowered the tax rate.
The other,
We keep having to hire, and inflation keeps going up. I mean,
We never
inflation affects
we never lowered the tax rate, ever.
Ever.
At a reassessment?
yeah, we do. We've done all the
I'd have to
time.
go back and research
Not
that.
the net value,
Right,
not the net value.
No, I'm
Because
talking-
if your house goes up 10%, we should have lowered the tax rate 10%, but we didn't lower the tax
No,
rate 10%.
you can't do that because nobody goes up equal.
But you always said it's okay to do an assessment year.
I said that's what's going to happen. I know that's what's going to happen.
And you're okay with that?
I'm not okay with that, but I know that's
Come
what's
on,
going to
you're
happen.
going to vote for it.
Some people, I will add, when you equalize the rate, there were times in the last reassessment that I know for Alan and I.
Somebody's house didn't go up as much.
We went up 30-some%
Right.
because of where our house was located, great, whatever.
Right.
The average was 19%.
Right.
But there were people that only went up 11%.
Right.
So technically where we set the rate, they were paying less taxes than they had the year before, where some of us were paying more taxes because nobody's on that average line much. Most everybody's above it, or some people are below it, so it just depends on where you are, what your house valued at and all that kind of stuff. So nobody got a refund, but some people did pay less taxes than they did the year before, even though the assessed value went up because the tax rate's set on the
That's the same as
median.
personal property tax. My car is not as valuable as Clay's car. I pay less than he does. That's not really the issue. The issue is we've never lowered the tax rate, period. That's what he just said. And I'm saying we've never lowered the tax rate, even with the equalized rate. That's a fact.
We advertised a tax increase coming out of our reassessment, is what you're saying.
Right.
Probably I had to go back and research that, but.
You don't have to. I can tell you that's true.
I guess the other thing that we need to discuss as part of this is one of the things in your proposed budget, we met with the schools today before this. And the schools asked us for what?
3.6 million. They lowered that by a little bit today, but
Yeah.
the original ask was
$3.6 million. I mean, the reality behind it is I don't think there's anyone on the board here that is going to agree that the schools are going to get $3.6 million. And I think the schools understand that the $3.6 million is probably not going to happen.
Make sure you clarify that, new money.
New money. But at the same time, I mean, it's the biggest employer in the county.
No,
And
no,
what's,
world-class distribution.
okay, biggest public employer in the county.
just make
Okay,
sure
then
you're-
we'll go with that. Well, biggest public employer in the county. And number one. Number two is the reality behind it is all over the place, they're hemorrhaging teachers. And if you don't keep a competitive salary with teachers, it's like firefighters. It's like everything else, police officers. If you don't keep a competitive salary with these people, they're gone. They're going to go to different jurisdictions. They're going to go to Spotsylvania. They're going to go to Hanover. And then we get, why is the teaching quality so bad? Well, we're not paying them. And then, so are we going to turn around and say, okay, it's okay to give the schools? Are we going to turn around later on when we discuss the budget and say, hey, it's okay to give the schools more money because we got plenty? We're not going to say that. All of a sudden now we're going to get tight and say, well, we don't have any money anymore. So the reality behind it is if you want something nice, and you're going to have to pay for it. We just told the schools tonight that we're going to give them $4.5 million to help with the HVAC systems that are failing, and we don't even know what's coming up that's for us.
We said we were going to borrow
We're going to borrow 4.5.
Right.
But we've got expenses, but we can't even anticipate. Like we're adding, I assume the fire station in Sparta is in the budget, correct? That's already been budgeted, the fire station that's coming out in Sparta?
Yeah, the debt service was years ago, so yeah,
Okay,
the rest
so
of us
we've done
all.
that.
We already borrowed that money too.
Chief Loftus has already talked about, hey, we need.
Remember we borrowed for both stations a long time ago?
Right.
We put some of the money on Carmel Church, so I don't know, but a lot of it's
right.
cash.
Chief Loftus has already talked about the fact that we're going to need a new fire station probably in Bowling Green. at some point, okay? We're going to need new infrastructure. I mean, the reality behind it is if we spend down to the minimum, we're going to put ourselves in a world of hurt again. We're going to have expenses coming up as the population goes up in this county, and it's grown the fastest of any jurisdiction in George Washington region. We have grown at 7% in the last 4 years, since 2020.
And so has the fund balance.
And so as a result of that, we're going to need to keep on adding firefighters. We're going to keep on adding police. You know, Sheriff Mosier told us, hey, I'm all of a sudden now getting stacked calls. Stacked calls means he's going to take priority on when he answers calls because doesn't have enough deputies on the road. So at some point, and that's a reality, he's told us about that, and Major Nutter has told us about that. At some point, I don't want a citizen call me and say, hey, by the way, I couldn't answer your call because I had another call. We're gonna have to keep on adding these people because as the population goes up, the calls are gonna go up. And that's a duty that we have to the citizens of this county, is to make sure that public safety and education is taken care of.
Mr. Chairman, let me tell you one fallacy with your argument. You're assuming that we will not have any increases in revenue.
And I think it's...
Wait a minute, you went on diatribe for 10 minutes, so let me kind of give you a rebuttal. Again, we have new businesses coming to the county, growing. We have additional revenue coming to the county. I will sit here and bet you today, a good old nice $100 bill, that we will have more revenue next year than we had this year. So our revenue is going to increase. It is up to us as the governing body to manage our spending. That's what we're here for. People elected us to make sure that we manage our funding the way they manage their home, the way they manage their increases. We are all under the same inflationary times, whether it's in government or whether it's here. Most people's salaries have gone up every year. They've got an increase. Their revenue has increased. So then you try to manage your expenses. The better you manage your expenses, you can look at that as additional revenue. And that's what happens with Mr. Culley's budget. He manages the revenue so that we have more revenue than expenditures to put in the fund balance. So the fund balance has grown exponentially over the last 10 years because he budgets so that we will have additional revenue. It goes into the fund balance and it grows. Our revenue has not decreased, has it, Mr. Culley, ever?
Oh, no, our revenue is not.
And that's how it balances. But a 1 cent tax increase just doesn't send a good message to the citizens when they have ensured that we have the money to run Caroline County efficiently and effectively. Sheriff Mosier, for the first time, the Sheriff's Department is completely 100% staffed.
Plus two.
We gave him 2 extra. For the first time, we're going to need additional people, but additional revenue is coming to Caroline County. I will bet you that.
And if I could add to that, the other expenditure that we always had that was a problem was what I said before, was those water and sewer connections. But now we've got expansion in Pendleton, expansion in Ladysmith Village or Bridlewood, wherever. There's expansion all over Belmont. We won't have that same deficit pulling money out of the general fund to pay for utilities. We've got connections that are going to make a difference. Why do we even consider this? It's just not fair to anybody here.
So let me ask you this question. So when a school teacher comes up to us and says, because what's happening when we're going to do the budget, this auditorium will be full of school personnel, school teachers. and they'll be telling us stories about how they could go to Spotsylvania or Hanover or wherever. So are we then going to say, well, we've got plenty of money in our budget to fund you to get a pay raise? Is that what we're going to tell them?
Every time the budget has come up, I have always stood on the table and said, give teachers a raise.
We are going to, that is.
I have always said that. Have I not said that?
So we are going to say that to the schools, that we have plenty of money, that we can give you enough for your teachers to get a raise because we want them to stay in Carolina. We support them.
Well, now you're in Spotsylvania. I know you watched the Spotsylvania board meeting where they talk about moving to Stafford and other places because they can get more money, right?
Yeah. So are we going to keep them competitive? That's what I'm asking.
I have not changed my opinion on teacher raises and will
Because
not.
right now in the budget, the schools have asked for $3.6 million, and we've got in the budget 800,000.
860.
860,000. There seems to be quite a gap there.
834.
There seems to be quite a gap there. So at what point are we willing to, how much of that gap are we willing to narrow?
That's not the question, right?
No, well, it is the question, because if we don't raise.
It's 350,000.
You did, Mr. Chairman, we just indicated the need to spend in the county for 3 fire stations, probably a new school at about $85 million, I would say.
Right.
Based on my calculation, what I think.
No question.
Right? In addition to all the things that you're going to need in terms of employee benefits and needs. This is not where we're trying to fund one entity. I'm looking at Caroline County as a whole, the micro, not the one entity that you seem to be fixed on. I'm looking at the county and saying, what fixes Caroline County as a whole? What makes us a better county as a whole? Right. The taxpayers are the ones who foot the bill for everything we discuss. It's the taxpayers, and we owe it to the taxpayers. Whether you disagree, whether it's 1 cent or 10 cents, it's the taxpayers who say, I'm doing my part. And since I've been on this board, they have done their part abundantly every year.
Mrs. Long?
Yes, and I think we have done our part. And I know the citizens have done their parts. My thing is, I remember as a citizen when this board had to do an 8-cent increase because we needed to build a school. It was a referendum and it went up and it hurt. I'm not going to do an 8-cent increase. I'm not going to wait until we have to do a 6-cent. Obviously, there are 2 people on the board who don't want to even do a 1-cent tax increase. And we will struggle by, but you cannot take care of your employees and increase the number of employees you have. We've got to get somebody now for the fire department, now thanks to some silly bill that was passed in Richmond. And we need to keep our employees here. That adds also. Health insurance is going up. No, is $350,000 going to solve anybody? It may pay part of those 3 new firefighters' salary, but you can't have it. You can't hit people with a large tax rate. I would have gone at 2 or 3 cents myself if I made the motion, because it's coming. We cannot keep growing. We cannot maintain our buildings, but I am not going to hit our citizens with a huge tax rate because it is painful. We've been there before. So if we did it gradually, a little bit at a time, laugh at the small amount. That's a heck of a lot easier for me to pull a $1 bill out of my wallet than it is for me to pull a 20.
Yeah, but everybody can't pull a dollar out of their wallet. That's the point. Everybody can't pull a dollar out of their wallet.
And they're going to be able to pull out a dollar.
You couldn't pull out a 20 when you raise the tax rate to a ridiculous rate.
They asked for that. That's what
I have the phones.
Right. You're right. Go ahead.
Look, you can bicker back and forth. You can do your little back and forth, but let's make a decision and let these people get home.
Nancy.
And no. We have a motion on the floor. Let's vote on it and move on. Our employees have to get home. These people have to get home, and this is ridiculous. It is a discussion. and we can have a work session and bring this back at another time.
You can't bring it
You
back.
can't bring this back. If you adopt a
can't bring it
rate,
back,
that's
yeah.
getting worked on tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah, but if we don't adopt a rate, if we cancel this motion,
Right, you got to be back in 2 weeks, and then you've got to be back at the May meeting with an ordinance update to extend the due date from June
which
5th.
would make it another meeting. But let's do something and move on with this. We know the taxes are going to have to go up. You all know that? How many out there like the 8% tax rate that went up many years ago? Did anybody like that? No.
Nobody likes that.
That was a referendum.
It was a referendum.
Right.
We all voted for it, but nobody thought, or a lot of people voted for it.
Citizens voted. It was a referendum.
For the school.
Right. It was a referendum.
And the other
that the citizens voted on.
Right, and the other 4 cents was because of the radio system the federal government required.
Right.
Exactly, and I know all that, but my point is, it hurt.
The citizens.
So let's not do a 6%,
6 cents.
a 6 cent raise, tax rate. Let's pick something,
I guess
make another motion or whatever, but let's move on.
All right, the last thing is, if the county's struggling, why does the fund balance go up $5 million? That's what you said. The county was struggling and fund balance went up $5 million.
I did not say the county was struggling. I said we are going to grow. We have to take care of our employees. We have to take care of our schools. We have to take care of our citizens. We have to take care of our emergency people. We're growing. When you grow, just like when you have more kids, your budget goes up. Just be prepared for it. We have roads we have to build.
So
So
anyway,
move on with the motion.
there was a
Let's go home.
motion by
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
call for the vote, yeah.
Yeah, there was a motion by Mr. Forehand for a penny, and you
What's your name
seconded.
again?
Okay,
Second, Mrs. Long.
second by Mrs. Long. Okay, the second was by Mrs. Long. All in favor of the 1 penny tax increase, vote aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those who vote nay.
Nay.
Division in the House, Mr. Forehand.
Aye.
Mr. Thomas.
Nay.
Mrs. Long.
Aye.
Mr. Underwood.
Nay twice.
And I vote aye, so the motion passes by a 3-2 vote. All right, we will move on with, after that entertainment, we will move on to.
Take a break and let our nerves settle.
No, yeah, well, we're going on to number 4, special exception 01-2024, Ladysmith Blackwood Development Company applicant. Who is in charge of this one?
The applicant's here. Oh.
Go for it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Public hearing for SPEX 01-2024 for private roads for the Blackwood Development Corporation Planned Shopping Center. The applicant's requesting approval of a special exception permit to allow private roads in the Ladysmith Crossing Planned Shopping Center. Ladysmith Crossing is a planned shopping center that was approved in 2015, fronting on Ladysmith Road. In 2016, 3 lots were created via subdivision with the approval of the plans and plats for the proposed Walmart that was not constructed. The owner of Ladysmith Crossing, Blackwood Development Corporation, would like to request that the roads in Ladysmith Crossing remain private. Private roads are still required to be built to VDOT standards. The Caroline County subdivision ordinance requires that streets are public streets when property is subdivided. The planned unit development zoning districts, applicants may request be a special exception that the streets remain private. The owner has provided a document that land purchasers would adhere to in Ladysmith Crossing. Maintenance would be performed by the landowners and developer. Staff suggests that a road maintenance agreement be recorded at the circuit court with any future subdivisions along with the document provided. New Green Road, which is partially constructed at this time, would remain a VDOT maintained road within the shopping center and connect existing Green Road and Ladysmith Road at the traffic signal installed at the Ladysmith Sheets intersection. The Planning Commission motioned to forward this application to the Board of Supervisors with a recommendation of approval. And this concludes the presentation, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Does the board have any questions before I open the public hearing? Yeah, Mr. Forehand?
I see New Green Road and I don't see the private road that we're having a public hearing about.
So the private roads are not created yet. They're required at the time of subdivision. The property, when it was originally subdivided with the Walmart, the Wawa site, and the site on Ladysmith Road that Dunkin' Donuts has applied for, those all had access on New Green Road, which is a public road and didn't require private road at the time. The future subdivision, since the layout of the subdivision has changed, with the Walmart not being there, lot sizes will differ. And so once they go to subdivide and know what the users will need in acreage wise, then they will be able to lay out the roads. And so this will be a special exception for private roads across these two tax map numbers. And then when the roads were created, they would record a road maintenance agreement in the circuit court at that time, and then we would know the layout.
Okay. Is there going to be any connection between New Green Road and the existing Green Road?
Yes, New Green Road will continue to run south to Green Road. And the GDP from the rezoning showed one connection to the east to existing Green Road somewhere south of the Exxon.
Through this parcel?
Yes, through the parcel, through what would have been the Walmart parcel, yes.
Okay. So we're giving them, just so I'm clear, we're giving them kind of carte blanche permission to lay out roads in addition to New Green Road within their development?
Yes, those roads would be used to access the parcels only. There would be a road network depending on how it is subdivided for that. The owner has provided the document where the developers and the land purchasers would maintain the roads. And if we had a road maintenance agreement recorded at the courthouse, then we could enforce the private roads to be maintained to VDOT standards.
Okay. And will we have any input into those? You know, I can't imagine they would do a poor job laying them out, but
yes,
you know, stranger things have happened, I guess.
Understand. So when they subdivide, it would have to go to the planning commission as a major subdivision, and the roads would have to be reviewed. We asked VDOT to review private streets to make sure that they're constructed to VDOT standards or not too close to intersections and meet those standards, as well as we would comment on road placement as well.
Okay.
I had a question.
Thank you.
Yep, Mr. Thomas.
Mr. Pennington, you have a pointer with you? A laser pointer?
I do.
Okay, point to me the two parcels you talked about that said they were going to be connected, the private roads are going to be connected?
So the parcels that are created right now are the Wawa parcel,
right?
The Dunkin' Donut application parcel,
right?
And this parcel here next to the Exxon. So it's currently two other parcels, the Walmart parcel, old Walmart parcel, and then the remainder of the property. So proposal right now would be to subdivide through here as users come to populate the road frontage. And there would be a road there's going to be a road right here that would access the Dunkin' Donuts. And that road would continue this way once this land is subdivided.
And that road will be private or that road will be public?
That road will remain, the request is that road will remain private.
So theoretically, the parcels that you're talking about to the right of Dunkin' Donut, those parcels would be basically landlocked to the private road.
So they would be created. They're only allowed one entrance off of Ladysmith Road, a right in, right out here. All other traffic must enter at Green Road.
Oh, so there is a right in, right out on those other parcels that's planned?
There's one right in, right out off Ladysmith Road, right about there.
That's a private road?
If the special exception gets approved.
Okay.
So once these parcels are created, a road would run here, and then further network would be created as the remainder of the parcel was subdivided for more users. The applicant is marketing the road frontage first, and then as the users show up that need more land, there may be another road that runs this way and connects up to that one. And then as this develops back here, there would need to be an access road to the west as well.
My concern is that the two parcels you identified first would be landlocked via the private road, so.
So this parcel would be expanded down to the private road, and then any parcel created here would be expanded to the private road. And then anything that developed here, if it developed as the Walmart, a big box type store, they would have access to this private road as well as New Green Road. If it was split up into smaller parcels, then there would probably be another access road that would be required here, and then possibly a connection to the next private road. When it went through subdivision review with the planning commission and was reviewed by staff, we would not allow for any landlocked parcels.
Okay, and that's all owned by Blackwood now, so Blackwood would theoretically maintain control of the private road.
Yes, that's what their document says that they currently have. The applicant is here if you would
Yeah, I
like
see.
to speak to the applicant. But yes.
Okay. All right, thank you, sir.
I have a question.
Is Mrs. Long?
So the roads are going to be built to state specs, so that's good. There'll be a road maintenance agreement. If 20 years from now, there are potholes, there are cracks, that type of thing, and the land has been developed out or whatever, what recourse do we have to make repairs happen?
The road maintenance agreement recorded at the courthouse would allow us to enforce repairs. And even when the development were completely built out, then the owner would own the roads. So if Blackwood Development Corporation were to cease, then another owner would take over that portion of land.
They would be held to the same agreements.
Correct.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else before all right, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. If anyone would like to, is the applicant here?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Mark Greenberg. I represent Blackwood Development Company. We are the owners of the property here. Just to provide, I guess, a little bit of clarification, the right-in, right-out that was spoken about is already installed, as well as the partial amount of the road that moves east-west from where New Green Road stops to hit that right-in, right-out. Those are already installed. This plan of development is the typical way that projects of retail projects of this size get developed now. There'd be no other way to do this other than with private roads. VDOT is not in a position to accept roads that are built in this situation. They wouldn't take them. So they will be built to VDOT standards. As a point of clarification, there is a master REA agreement that is in place that Mr. Pennington was speaking about, that right now we are the declarant under that agreement. We would be responsible for maintaining the roads with contributions from the either outparcel users or tenants. I mean, they're going to be major commercial users. They would be much more upset with us than you would if the roads are not properly maintained. And then we have agreed in addition during the Planning Commission to provide an additional safeguard that the county would also have oversight, if something were to happen with the roads, to make us do the maintenance as well. If you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer them.
So right now, the only parcels we know about are the Duncan, the Wawa, and then
that's all that's public information at this point in time.
So what you're saying is we got a Wegmans coming?
I think it was, I heard
So what you're
Chick-fil-A.
saying, Chick-fil-A, we'll take it. Administration has been slow on trying to get us a Wegmans, and we really need one. So down here, or at least a Publix or something besides Food Line. So, so anyway, but I appreciate it.
You're not negotiating in public, are you?
No, we're not negotiating in public. No, absolutely. He's going to do a great job. So, anyway, all right. Does anyone have any questions in regards to that? I will, I'm going to go ahead and, if no one has any questions, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing.
Thank you.
Oh, I didn't even open it yet? Okay, I'm going to go open the public hearing. God, it's getting late. All right, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. Is there anyone who would?
The break?
Yeah, right, exactly. Is there anyone who would like to discuss this matter? Is there anyone who would like to discuss this matter? Once again, is there anyone who would like to have any comments on this matter? Seeing that there's no comments, we will close the public hearing. All right, how would the board like to deal with this?
What district is this?
This would be your district.
Oh, another
Yeah, you remember the road to nowhere? It's actually the road to somewhere.
I love it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Road to
Right
nowhere,
there. The
yes.
road to somewhere, actually.
All right,
yes.
we're gonna make a motion to, and I understand the need for private roads in this type of quasi-strip commercial development. So I'm gonna make a motion that we allow the special exception 01/20/24.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any other further discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously. All right, we are on to our next. Thank you, Mr. Greenberg. Thank you. All right, we are on to our next public hearing, which is, I will let Mr. Hughes take charge.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. This is a request for a comprehensive plan amendment to create a growth area that will allow extension of public water and sewer. The area is located.
There you go.
There we go. So the area is located across from Caroline County High School near the intersection of Route 207 and Devil's Street Jump Road on the western line of Route 207, approximately 4,000 feet south of the Lady Smith Road, Route 639, bounded by Rogers Clark Boulevard and Goldinsville Road. Then it runs west approximately to Moorville Road here, and then north along the property boundaries here, and then back down along to Rogers Clark Boulevard. The area proposed contains 25 parcels that total 244 acres. There are 2 parcels that are currently zoned R1. The applicant has submitted a rezoning application on one parcel to rezone one parcel from RP to R1 to be consolidated with the existing R1 parcels for the development of a subdivision. And the lots that are the subject of the rezoning, this is the lot that's subject to the rezoning. These 2 pieces here are currently zoned R1. Here and here. This piece and this piece are currently zoned R1. This piece is the subject of the rezoning. Go to the next slide, please. So this proposed growth area is within the groundwater management area as defined by the Department of Environmental Quality. The aquifers in this area have a slow replenishment rate and are monitored by the Department of Environmental Quality. Any development in this area that will utilize a well will be required to conduct tests to determine if the groundwater yield would have any impact on the well water supply. The poorhouse track system that currently provides water to this, or will provide water to this area, is a transient system that provides water to the schools and would need to be upgraded and permitted as a public system in order to serve residential development. The Department of Utilities has noted that the poorhouse system does not have adequate water to support this development, and that this development would require a well that can supply 54,000 gallons per day of additional water and a pump station for the sewer system. Oh, sorry. So the image on the screen is provided by the DEQ. The light gray areas on the map represent critical cell areas within the groundwater management area. The image on the left is of the Aquia Aquifer. The map on the right is of the Potomac Aquifer, and the blue area there represents the area for the proposed comp plan amendment. This is an image of the parcels that are identified in the applicant's GDP for the rezoning. If the amendment and the rezoning are approved, as has been noted, it is the applicant's intent to consolidate the parcels and develop a residential project. The applicant's generalized development plan depicts a subdivision with 135 lots with a minimum lot size of 15,000 square feet, subject to the approval of the extension of public water and sewer. The by right allowance utilizing the two parcels that are currently zoned R1 with individual well and septic systems is approximately 63 1-acre lots. This is the future land use map that notes the growth areas, and the blue square is the area of the request. The 2030 comprehensive plan designates this area as rural preservation, and it should be noted that it is outside of any designated growth area. This area was designated as a growth area in 1985, which resulted in the two R1 zone parcels being rezoned. In 1990, this area was removed as a growth area when the growth areas in the comp plan were redefined. Approval of this request would allow the extension of public water and sewer to serve the parcels for residential development, but it would also place additional development pressure on the area as there are several large parcels adjacent to and in close proximity of the proposed parcels for the rezoning. The existing growth areas have experienced growth within the last 5 years. The Carmel Church growth area has been primarily industrial growth along the Route 207 corridor, and the Belmont subdivision recent proffer amendment, which allows an additional 526 units. There are approximately 6,000 acres of developable land contained in the Carmel Church growth area. The Ladysmith growth area has been primarily commercial development along Ladysmith Road and residential development in the Pendleton, Lake Caroline, and Lake Landor subdivisions. Bridlewood or South Village was approved for a total of 171 lots and has 115 lots remaining. Pendleton was approved for 3,508 units of multifamily, single-family detached, and single-family attached, with approximately 3,000 lots remaining. So as you see, there's a significant amount of growth and available area for continued residential development within the current growth areas without expanding and creating a new growth area along Route 207. The Planning Commission held a public hearing in February and voted 6-0 to recommend denial of this request. This concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions. The applicant is present and may wish to address the board.
Does anyone have any questions before I open the public hearing? Anyone have any questions? You wait. Okay. Yeah. As soon as I open the public hearing. Or I'll wait for would the applicant like to speak now? Would you like to speak and then? All right. I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. And then I'll give the applicant, you have 10 minutes, Mr. Webb.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and board members. My name is Dan Webb, and I reside in the Bowling Green District. We started to work with the Ragland family on this property back in 2021. They listed it for sale. We saw an opportunity to work with them, and we met with planning staff and determined that we wanted to take currently there are two parcels that are zoned R1, combined they're 60 acres. And what our plan was to rezone the additional 30 that they own and not increase the number of units that we could do by right, but we just wanted to spread those out. We met with staff, like I said, and met with the utility department. At that time, we were told that we could extend utilities. The utility director explained, it was a transient system. We were going to need to make some upgrades to that in order to expand that water line into this development. We were willing to make the modifications and the changes that we needed to. And again, we weren't looking to increase the number of units that could be done there by right. As we went through that process, planning staff then determined that we could not extend water and sewer to this because it's not in the growth area. I don't read the ordinance that way, but that's been the decision. And so we made application to expand this area, the growth area here. And we've been waiting until the first of the year, when we could officially apply. The reasons that I think it makes sense to have a growth area here are, first of all, we're on a 4-lane divided highway. This development area is right beside the high school, right beside the middle school. There are recreational amenities right behind the high school. You have the recycling center right back there. So a lot of the facilities that citizens would need are right there in close proximity. Not only that, but I mean, we're probably half the distance to a grocery store than any of the residents that are being constructed there at Carmel Church in the Belmont area. You know, their closest grocery store is probably Ladysmith, which is 8-9 miles away. Our project here, town of Bowling Green or Ladysmith, you're looking at probably about 4 miles. So I think it makes a lot of sense to allow us to develop this. And it's already zoned. We will develop it one way or the other. We felt like water and sewer would be the best route. With all the discussion I've heard tonight, I don't see why in the world you wouldn't want to collect water and sewer fees for a project when water and sewer are right there. So I think it just makes a lot of sense. And again, if you decide not to extend water and sewer, you know, we'll look at doing well and septic, but I think it's a real missed opportunity for the county. And again, I think it makes sense, 4-lane divided highway there, schools, water, sewer, recreational amenities, everything is right there in very close proximity. But I'd be glad to answer any questions that you have.
Does anyone have any questions for the applicant? Okay. Is there anyone who would like to discuss, while the public hearing is now open, this project? Is there anyone who would like to come up and discuss this project? Now is your time to speak.
I'm Teresa Fields. I'm from the Mattaponi district. 2 of my parcels is right next door to it. My concerns is the traffic. We already have 4 officers there between 7 and 7:30 and 2:30 and 3 o'clock every day. He's going to add 135 parcels, which means kids are included in that. That's 4 more teachers, more buses. In consideration of this, the wells that we all have, and some are elderly on fixed income and cannot take care of the public water and sewer, they're not able to afford it. They're hooking up to that. It will cost the county more to have, you got to have walkways for the kids because you know they're going to cross a 4-lane highway to go to the park or to school. It's going to cost the county more in that. They're going to have, the schools are already overcrowded and understaffed. The improvements has got to be done to 601 Goldsville Road. We've got to have 2 grocery stores in the area. We're going to have 135 more residential areas. They're already packed as there is. How can we do this? Caroline is going to have to put more into adding all this in to have these residential units put there. Thank you.
Teresa, before you go, can you say your last name again?
Fields.
Fields.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this matter? Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Again, Christian McCurtain from Benai District. I'm actually, I guess, technically a neighbor of Ms. Fields, who was just up here. I was actually not aware of this project. I apologize for my ignorance until she actually came to my home about, I think, sometime in the last year or so. At that time, I believe there was a request for rezoning, I think, from rural preservation on one part of the parcel in order to maximize the number of housing units, I believe it was. I'm not sure if I understood what happened previously, if they're now not looking to do that. I'm not sure. I can kind of echo her sentiments. I am on well water as well. We have very strange topography at my house. If anybody's been down Monroeville Road and there's a house roof, you don't see the rest of the house. It's in a hole right near the end of the road. So I don't know how that affects our water table. I'm always very cautious on how I use the land and what's on the soil. As far as traffic, I know that traffic management grows within the area. There's the concerns obviously about safety, and I know that she states that the deputies and the times in the morning I go and usually come home, it doesn't affect me, but it does affect other people. I personally cannot tell people what they can do with their property. I mean, if you sell the property, you own the property, you can usually do with it as you see fit. Obviously the mitigating circumstances of well water, I understand from the Planning Commission meeting, I think I saw on streaming that there would have to change the nature of the water that comes out of that water tower because it's intermittent use supposedly between the school and the high school and middle school or whatever. So for residential use, it would have to be further purified or something like that. So I'm sure there's an added cost to that. One of the other things that, and what had been mentioned previously in the meeting, when you talk about revenue and we talk about how the revenue, I thought the additional $5 million, from what I understood, was that not that you got an additional $5 million, but that something you thought you had to pay for, you didn't have to pay for. So that's great. You saved money, but we can't see further enough down the road to know if additional revenue is coming. I know that we thought that, was it Harris Teeter or something? There was going to be a distribution center. Well, economic winds shift, and now that's essentially dead in the water. I am for the data centers because they don't flow in the same sales as Wegmans and Wawa. The Walmart that supposedly was going to come here is not. Look, we have a Sheetz, and I understand the Wawa's on the way, but as these economic turmoils continue to boil over, we're not going to have, I think, guaranteed revenue. And additionally, rezoning, from what I understand, right, is not guaranteed that it's going to get developed right away. Right. It's not guaranteed that it's actually going to be built right away, that if people are going to buy the house, rates are astronomical. So, I mean, I'm not necessarily opposed, but I don't like the environmental impact from the well situation. So, I guess that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding this matter? Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding this matter? Mr. Collins?
Good evening, Chairman Black, members of the board. While we understand the need for growth and development within our community, we must prioritize responsible and sustainable planning that considers the long-term well-being of our county. The proposal to designate a new growth area in the Mattaponi voting district, allowing for the extension of public water and sewer, raises significant concerns that cannot be overlooked. First and foremost, it's crucial to address the existing inventory of undeveloped building lots within the county. A staggering 20,000 building lots are already available and have been zoned that way. It is evident that there is no immediate need to designate additional areas for residential development. The emphasis should be on utilizing existing resources efficiently before expanding into new territories. Furthermore, the recommendation of denial from the Planning Commission highlights the reservations surrounding this proposal. It is indicative of potential issues and discrepancies that warrant serious consideration. The concerns raised by the Planning Commission must not be dismissed lightly, as they are based on expert analysis and a thorough understanding of our community's needs and limitations. Moreover, the proposed residential project of approximately 135 lots raises questions about the sustainability and impact on the surrounding properties, environment, and infrastructure. Developing such a sizable project without provisions for water and sewer could strain existing resources. The priority should be on ensuring that our county's growth is managed responsibly and in alignment with the principles of sustainability and community well-being. We cannot afford to prioritize short-term gains at the expense of long-term consequences. Therefore, I urge the board to reject the proposed comprehensive plan change and instead focus on addressing the needs of our existing communities and building out the current growth areas before considering any further expansion. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding this matter? Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding this matter? Hearing none, I will declare the public hearing closed. Board members, do you have questions, comments, concerns, or a motion? Mr. Thomas?
Nobody else has questions?
No, go for it.
Mr. Hughes, may I ask you a couple of quick questions, please?
Certainly.
And one is about the process. As Mr. Webb spoke about, he had been trying to do a rezoning, but after whatever amount of time, he decided to do a comprehensive plan amendment. Can you explain why this is a comprehensive plan amendment and not a rezoning so that all of us will understand?
So just to give you some history.
Well, the Reader's Digest version, please.
Yes. So he originally filed his rezoning application. It was determined that because they wanted to extend the water and sewer outside of a growth area, that they needed to, the ordinance says it should only be extended to a growth area, so within a growth area. So after they had gotten started in the process, it was determined that they needed to do a comp plan amendment. And so that's why they had to go back and do the comp plan amendment. When he spoke about waiting until January, the way our ordinance is set
That's
up.
where our ordinance is set up. You have to apply at the
You have
beginning
to
of the year.
apply at the beginning of the year by January 15th for any comp plan amendments. And so he had to wait until that time to do so. So that was
So
some
the
additional
key is
time.
because he was asking for utilities to be expanded, they could only be expanded into a growth area, and that made him come to the growth area process.
That is
for
correct.
Expansion.
That is
Whereas if he didn't ask for utilities, he could have done a straight rezoning and said, I want to rezone this land, right? If he wasn't asking for utilities to expand.
Well, right.
Okay. All right. That's what I just wanted to make sure everybody understood that. And I think Mr. Webb, after a couple of years, understood that now. And sorry for that delay. The other question is that in this particular case, the Planning Commission voted unanimously for denial.
Correct.
We don't have any notes or anything about what was transpired during the Planning Commission. So can you give us like a brief overview of what their issues were?
Sure. I think the commission was concerned about the additional growth pressure that an extension of water and sewer would place on that portion of the county. The fact that it would, if you create a growth area, it'll makes it a little bit easier for property owners to come along and ask for additional rezonings to create additional density in that area. At 244 acres, if you went to the R1 15,000 square foot lot size, you could end up with about 700 homes within that area. And so there was just a concern about that much impact in that particular area and the impact it could potentially have on the groundwater. I mean, it is in a conservation groundwater management area. So the lack of existing resources, the requirement to have to dig a well to supplant existing water resources was also a concern.
And there was nothing in this proposal about expanding water and sewer or water on the part of the applicant.
Well, maybe as a part of the rezoning application, the applicant was willing to do that.
But not as part of this particular comprehensive plan amendment.
Right. So the comp plan amendment doesn't necessarily address the physical development for the project. The comp plan amendment simply says the county deems this area appropriate for this type of development. The question about the extension of water and sewer and installation of additional utilities would come along with the rezoning. And that's where the applicant would make a commitment to installing those utilities.
Okay. Mr. Chair, if anybody else has any other questions,
Mr. Forehand?
No questions. Actually,
Mr. Underwood?
I just wish we had the notes from the.
I have none, Mr. Chairman.
Mrs. Long?
I have one. Mr. Shebel?
Yes, ma'am.
The water system they're referring to, that's the school and Milford water system?
It is the high school system, what we call the poorhouse system. It is a transient community because you don't have occupants that are there 24 hours a day. It's a school system. So the difference between a transient and residential system means that we have additional testing that's required. The system itself it could be either or. It's not required to be a residential system because there's no residential units to it. So we're able to treat that as a transient system, which means it doesn't cost as much money for us to be able to do testing more frequently.
All right. Thank you.
Yes.
I'd like to correct, I said something that the planning commission notes were not in here, but they actually are. They were hiding.
Yes.
But they're in here. Thank you.
Mr. I have nothing. Mr. Thomas, do you have anything else, or do you want to make a?
If you're ready for a motion, Chairman.
Am I able to respond to any of those concerns?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Just to clear up the comprehensive plan amendment is just the one additional step that was added in. We still have a rezoning application in. That is when we are making, proffering to make improvements to the transient system to bring it in. So I just wanted to make sure that's good. We weren't changing the process. This is just an additional step that was added to the process for us. So, thank you.
I understand. I appreciate that. And I think that's part based on what the planning commission has said and based on my understanding of the area. Bless you. We're creating a growth area in the middle of an area that does have amenities with the high school and all those things, but there are no commercial entities within that growth area. So as Mrs. Fields said, there will be extra impact on travel because all those folks have to go somewhere. I think as it is now, you can do 65 houses or something. There was some discussion by right from the 1990 or whatever, before I was on the board zoning. If the whole process goes through, you can do 125, which again is an issue for the impact on the neighbors in terms of well water. And I'm very sensitive to that because I had a shallow well that went dry, and it's not a fun feeling. So I need to make sure we protect those who are there already. And I'm going to make a motion to deny the comprehensive plan amendment at this time, period. And that's my motion based on what the planning commission has said and based on what we've heard today.
Second.
Motion and a discussion, or motion and a second. Any other discussion?
To respond?
Any discussion? Mr. Webb, I will just briefly, I read over this, and my concern is, yes, there was a comments made earlier that, like we have a whole lot of lots in Caroline that we need to fill up first. And I feel like in the county where I teach at right now, there wasn't a lot of pre-planning. It's just growth everywhere. And I'd kind of like to see us fill up the areas where we do already have houses before we start expanding or adding density and so forth. So that would be my reason for denial. So I just wanted you to know that. And of course, the water issue is a major concern as well. So can I get a call for the vote?
That's your chair.
Yes. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right.
Sure you don't want to take that break?
Motion carries unanimously for denial. All right. We are now through. Yes, I'm sorry. We are now we finished all of our unfinished business. We do have new business, and we finished one thing on new business, but we now have to number 9, which is the direction on staff whether to submit proposal to respond to Bowling Green for the wastewater system. Who would this be? Mr. Cully.
Sorry, I gotta move that back. As you may remember and be aware, we've been operating under basically emergency clause that we had with the town. Their sewer system and their water system, for the most part, they do have a licensed water operator, but due to the lack of a licensed operator for their sewer plant, we took that over in August. And we developed a MOU that y'all saw that we sent to the town in the fall. We had several meetings with them, Joey and I, and met with the town manager, and Chris was on Zoom with their attorney on Zoom, and we're awaiting their proposed changes to the MOU that we had submitted. In the meantime, their attorney advised them that they ought to find out if there's anybody else out there to make sure the price we gave them was reasonable. And I understand that, but we didn't really know that was coming. So they just put that RFP on the street, which is more complicated than the MOU, and Joey can explain that, than what we were proposing to do for them. Is pretty much takeover of their complete operations. But in the meantime, you know, to operate their system, we have we have several licensed operators. We have a licensed operator with the license that's required for their plant. And he's been over there since August. He doesn't work there every day. Their employees work there, but he oversees their work, and he has to file his paperwork, and it's an online system with DEQ. And he has gotten, he hadn't had any additional pay for that, much less he doesn't have direct control of those employees that still work for the town of Bowling Green. And we've had some incidents that are concerning. And so he has notified me that he doesn't want his license on the town system. And as an employee of the county, it's not something I can order him to do. He has his license with us for our system. So he wanted to pull it off sooner. I got him to agree to go to the end of this month, to the end of April. And I've told the town that, so they're aware of that. And I think we'll maybe work toward trying to find some way to compensate him, although I'm not positive we get that done before the end of April. But anyway, we're here tonight we really feel we need to give the town a deadline. They've had this a long time, and we've been in this limbo state trying to supervise their employees, but they're not our employees that continue to operate the plant. And then giving extra duties to several of our employees from Mr. Schiebel on down to oversee all this without any extra additional compensation coming from the town to the county to them to anything. So I think we would like for the board, we didn't want to just end it and say we're not doing it anymore because y'all authorized basically for us to help them and develop the MOU. But I think there needs to be some deadline that pick somebody, us, somebody else, Aqua, whoever it's going to be, we need to get out or take over, and the employees become county employees where we can supervise them. And if they're not performing to the standards of our operators, then they will ultimately be dealt with either through, training or that type of thing, or have to move on. And do you want us to submit? We're not planning from a staff level submitting an RFP. We gave them the MOU. We waited a long time and found out their changes to that MOU on the 26th of March while we were at the meeting. That's why I can remember when Chris McKenzie got them from their lawyer. So we really haven't made many changes to that. I don't know that we would agree with most of their changes from a staff level. And I will, the town folks pay taxes to the county, and they are county citizens, and I'm very much aware of that. But it's not our desire to go into a situation with them where we're losing money on what we're doing for them for the rest of the citizens of the county, so to speak, if you can follow my logic. So we don't mind working toward we're not trying to make money, we're not trying to take advantage of them, but we don't want a situation where we're not recovering all our costs. And so we do have some percentages in there, you saw those, for overhead that we feel are reasonable, because there are going to be a lot of times when I'm going to be involved, Mr. Schiebel's going to be involved, and there's not going to be a direct reimbursement for that type of thing. So we felt we gave them a reasonable thing. We might could negotiate that down a little bit, but to, kind of eliminate it and not do that, I don't think we're comfortable with. So it's kind of two things. Do you want us to submit to their RFP? We're not recommending it. And two, can you set a deadline that we can tell the town, pick us, don't pick us, whatever, but we're coming out of here sometime in the foreseeable future. And it may be quicker, because if I don't have an operator, nothing, I don't have a license to go over there. There's nothing I can do. Anything you'd want to add to that?
This has been 9 months so far. It started August of last year.
Yeah, right, August of 23. Yes, sir.
So we've spent 1,000 hours.
Yeah, that's in your packet.
And not been paid for the 1,000
No, we've been recovering that cost. So we bill them every month.
Okay.
For hours that we send a man over there. But I don't think your hours have been.
So I've got about 109 hours that the county's been directly reimbursed for my hours. But every time I get a phone call and I'm on the phone for 5 minutes, talk to the town manager on the phone, I don't record that time. I mean, that's time, it does add up. but that's not being recorded. So, but the town is reimbursing us. We do have an emergency MOU that's for repairs. So we're using that separately for doing some of the repairs. We've been sending our electrician over there. We've been sending our mechanic over there helping and doing things, trying to save money during this process. And it becomes very taxing to the current employees. And, it's 1,000 man hours that I have lost. So I've basically lost, a total employee in the utility department over the last 9 months because of that time. And it does add up to the employees, and we see the difference within the department. So it is becoming taxing. If we were actually operating the system, we would be hiring an additional employee as part of that MOU, which would provide additional staff over there to be able to make sure that that's being manned. It does give us that control over those employees. One of the problems we've got now is, we don't have the control over that employee. And if you lose that employee, we don't have an employee to fill it. So do you deal with an employee that might not be performing because that's all you've got? You don't have any backup, and we don't have any depth at all. I had my right-hand person in utilities, the superintendent, actually had to work at the town on Saturday because to cover for an employee that couldn't be there. So all my staff were gone. I had one that was on vacation, another was out of town. So I had my plant that had to be manned. And then the only person I could do is bring my superintendent in to actually run the town system on Saturday. So, we're doing everything we can to try to help the town, but it is very taxing to us. The deadline for the proposal is this Friday, and it is different from what we did. The town gave us a pretty specific, to operate the water and wastewater system. They did ask for us to look at doing the billing as part of that. We chose not to do that because they've already have switched over to Keystone. We have not, and for us to try to operate a system we haven't even been trained on, it didn't make any sense. We told them we could look at that at a later date. But as far as project management and doing those type of things and assisting with those, doing connections, that wouldn't be something that would be part of this MOU. The MOU is to operate the water and wastewater system. We could do those other things. It would take more money, more time to really look at that. And those would be cyclical based on the growth in the area. You get new connections, every time you've got somebody going in to do a new tap. And those are kind of, things that you can't really budget for because you don't know what those connections are going to be over the next 5 years to kind of say, all right, this year we got 10, next year we got 5. You just don't know. So it makes it very difficult to do that kind of billing and even to have the employees to be able to support an operation when it comes to those things. It'd be a little bit different if it was our system and managed compared to the town system, but it makes it very difficult for us to be able to provide the same service without really expanding what we've done in our MOU drastically and providing additional staff to be able to help manage projects as far as water and sewer replacements, grant writing, and things of the sort.
Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Colley, just to be clear, your recommendation is that we should not respond to the RFP, correct?
Correct.
Let that go and then give them a timeline for departure.
Correct.
Your recommendation for departure would be what? Based on Mr. Shebels, or he would probably kind of have some idea of what it would take for them to get someone to manage that for them. So what's reasonable? We don't want to leave them hanging, but we want to make sure that they are expedient in resolving the issue. So what's reasonable? 30 days, 90 days, 120?
Yeah, I had originally thought if we could get to the end of May.
End of May?
That gives them time. They've got their RFP is due back. We could still negotiate with them if they wanted to in the MOU that we've already sent them, and if the things they may have problems with, we'd be willing to discuss those. There again, I can't take overhead percentage to zero. I mean, that's just
right. I understand.
So we'd be willing to discuss that with them to continue, but this isn't a project we were looking for right off.
I understand that.
So we were offering to help them, and I've explained that a couple of times.
Just looking for some guidance.
Right. And so, I think that trying to respond to their RFP, when we got that on the 26th, Mr. Shebel had a vacation plan for spring break the following week, so we just didn't have time to respond.
Right, that's fine.
And now it's due Friday. So I think we just wanted you to know that we weren't planning to respond to that. And we think that they need some sort of deadline. If it's the end of May, I think that's reasonable.
Okay.
If they come back and say, hey, we got, we're jammed up, but, give you some reason why that doesn't work, maybe the board could reconsider that. But I think right now we've been going since August. We thought we'd had this done months ago, to be honest, months ago. Now, they've had a new town manager, they had an interim, they've had some leadership changes. So they've had some legitimate reasons why it's not done. But we really feel like there needs to be some, hey, we can't do this, just ongoing. It's causing internal issues with my employees.
Thank you, Mr. Scully. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman.
Mrs. Long?
Mr. Cully and Mr. Shebel, since I've been involved with small towns, and I can say that your guys and gals do a great job. They're doing wonderful for the new water system in Port Royal, but you were a lot of help before we got that water system. So much appreciation to all of them. It is also very easy once you've got somebody solving your problems to put off solving them yourself. So I think we definitely need to go with a deadline, and I would move that we give them until the end of May to come up with either accepting our MOU or finding their own employees. Because as much as I love the people in Bowling Green, we got to take care of our own. So that would be my recommendation.
Okay, so do we need a motion for this? You do? Okay.
I would I think that carries more weight from the
do you wanna
board that
make
you
that as a motion?
said something.
So I would make a motion stating that we send them notification that the MOU that's currently in would end at the end of May.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion on the motion?
We'll put the wording right.
Uh-oh, here comes the lawyer.
Can I just clarify one point, Ms. Long? So we don't have any MOU with them right now.
We don't have any agreement. We're
We've
just
been
looking for
working, we've sent them one and we've got their red line back. But there are significant changes between what we sent them and what they sent us back. So I think the question is, we can certainly respond to them and say, here's the changes we accept, here's the ones we reject.
Just got it.
And just decide, but, and then
8:30.
it's kind of a take it or leave it. Is that by the end of May?
So you need me to change my motion to saying that we will no longer be assisting them after the end of May and let you all work on whatever you have in your hand at your own space is what I would do.
Okay,
right.
I'll amend my
motion.
second.
Can you make that 60 days from today? Because that's what Mr. Cully's recommended. You're only giving them 6 weeks.
So it really needs to go through the end of the month because of the way that it has to end at the end of a month because of our reporting and responsibility.
Thank you. My bad.
Okay. So I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
So motion second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Do this
All
next
right,
time.
motion carries. All right, the next on our agenda is we have the discussion of pay study recommendations. And I just talked to Mr. Thomas for a second. We just saw this. We've just gotten our hands on this tonight. And I would, is the board okay with us? What's that?
Defer.
Defer. We would like to.
Wonderful.
We would like to defer this to.
Yeah, we're not asking you to approve anything. This was just brought up for, to bring on discussion. But if you want to defer, we thought we would do it at a budget work session anyway. So
Yeah.
Please,
So,
please.
I'm not ready to discuss something I haven't seen. Really,
Alan spent a lot of time on the memo, explains, exactly where everything was.
Yeah,
and how
we
laid
read it. I
out.
did read it, yep.
So, those are the facts.
Right. Okay.
Speaking of work session, we need to establish a date for that.
We do.
You wouldn't give us the facts, right?
We do. So we will.
Not like you wouldn't give us the facts.
We will. So we will defer that.
I didn't mean that.
To when we have our work session, Mr. Cully. Okay, so when do we want to have, did everyone vote on the Google? We did a Google
No,
vote, but
it came down to Tuesday, the 30th was the preferred, and if not that, May the 2nd, which was a Thursday. The votes we
Tuesday the
did get.
30th or May 2nd, which is a Thursday. Yep, okay,
So one of those two dates had the most votes,
all right.
but not everybody voted.
Tuesday the 30th and May the, all right. I'm okay with either one. Mr. Forehand, the 30th or the 2nd? While we're waiting, Mr. Thomas,
Didn't matter.
Mr. Underwood, 30th, Mrs. Long? 30th, all right, so we will plan for Tuesday.
Recess out of this meeting to the
Yeah,
30th.
yeah, we'll recess out of this meeting till Tuesday.
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock, yep. Are we gonna be in the, it will be in the EOC?
Yeah, you don't have to be. I think the week prior on the Thursday, the 25th, is planning commission in here, but I don't think there's anybody in here, but I can't hold to that.
It's
but
a lot
yeah.
easier to do like work sessions in the EOC than it is here.
Right.
Okay,
Easier to video in here.
yep. Right, but he was just, no, we're fine on the 30th. We're fine. So, all right, so we agree to meet on the 30th. Mr. Cully, informational and calendar items?
The 24th, 6:30, the Sparta groundbreaking. So that's Wednesday, the 24th. That was
What time?
to accommodate, 6:30, to accommodate the volunteer chief who was out of town on this Saturday that we had thought we could do. We just added the meeting on the 30th. Then in May, our regular meeting is the 14th. The EDA Business Appreciation Reception, 6 o'clock on Thursday, the 23rd. Memorial Day is then the 27th, and then our next board meeting is the day after Memorial Day on the 28th. So those are the meetings and events that we have ongoing in the rest of this month and that.
Where's the EDA?
I think the Barnes and Mattapan, yes.
Yes.
I cannot make the May 14th meeting. If we could move it to the Monday, the 13th, be good, but if not, I'll have to, either
The 14th?
14th, that's the two, I can't make that Tuesday meeting, May 14th.
We know when the high school graduation is?
21st of May.
Thank you.
If we could move that meeting to the 13th, that would help me, but if not, I could always do, Zoom.
Yeah, we can zoom in.
If we don't want to move it.
I don't care. Think I'm fine on the 13th.
It's up to the board, wherever the board. Pleasure.
Yeah, I mean, the 13th of May, Monday, that's,
What do we have
is the board okay with that, Mr. Forehand?
Which one?
The, Tuesday, the 14th, move it to Monday, the 13th, so Mr. Underwood can be here.
I can Zoom, but I won't be home.
That's fine with me.
Yeah, Mr. Forehand said that's fine.
All right, so 13th, thank you.
All right.
Appreciate that.
We need to check what needs to go out publicly to amend the regular schedule. But could we at least just get a motion from you to amend the regular schedule to have the Tuesday meeting, the 14th, on Monday, the 13th?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that our May 14th meeting be moved to May 13th.
Second.
Thank you.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries so that we have moved that. Closing board comments. We are to that point. So Mr. Forehand.
I will forego any comments tonight.
Mr. Underwood.
I have no comments, Mr. Chair.
Mrs. Long.
I have no comments.
If I could indulge the board just really quickly, if we could get on the, and I have talked to Mr. Whiteman about this, If we could get on the agenda about possible with the idea of some civil penalties for businesses that are not doing what they're supposed to as far as fire code violations when you go into their store and then trash around the outside of their store. I don't want to say the name of the business in public, but we've got some situations in the Ladysmith area where it's not going well, and even after warnings, they don't seem to be adhering to what the county expects of them. So if that could be a discussion, I would appreciate it. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Oh, to recess, motion to recess.
Recess.
We're done with the closed session. Yeah, we did both closed sessions. We're ahead of you, Mr. Cully. All right, so we did both, yes.
And since I caught you before you adjourned, I just checked the code, and there's a code provision on changing a regular meeting. And what we'll need to do is, you need to adopt a resolution, but I think the motion you passed is functionally same thing as resolution. So we'll take that and we will put it in a written form, and then we need to post that in a couple places on the courthouse door, county admin, and advertise it 7 days in advance of the meeting to make sure that everyone knows the change happened. So just informing the board.
Okay. So I will now take a motion to adjourn to recess. Yes, recess. I'm sorry. I'm really tired. All right. Motion to recess to, yep. I have a motion, a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are recessed.